Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brower and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we are doing a mailbag episode. We are going to be answering your guys' questions on a wide variety of topics. NBA, NFL, Thanksgiving, which NBA player would have the best chance against me in a twerk-off? Nobody. That was a question that was asked. And overall, we just had a shit ton of questions from you guys, so we appreciate it. We are unfortunately not going to be able to get too close to all of your questions, but we do have a lot of them here that we're going to go through today, Logan. We'll start with an NBA section, and we will start with a little bit of clout privilege here. We're first going to answer a question from our friend Rusty Buckets, shout out, wonderful guy, who asks, when the concept of scoring gravity comes up, Steph is rightfully the main example people bring up. He basically embodies the term. Who would y'all say is the next best embodiment of scoring gravity, Logan?
Jokic. I think off the top of my head, like guys that I watch. I think a lot of great scorers have gravity. Obviously, I think Steph is the most extreme example of that, where you can't lose sight of him off ball. But I do think it's Jokic. I think the fact that you can't defend the guy one-on-one. He collapses defenses like nobody I've seen. Maybe like LeBron. I don't know. Those are the first two guys I think of when I think of scoring gravity. But I would just say I think Jokic takes the cake just because he can do it at all three levels and you can't stop him in single coverage.
Interesting. Jokic, despite being my offensive GOAT, is not the first guy I would think of when it comes to scoring gravity, just because his playmaking is so lethal as well that oftentimes defenses are forced to or try to deal with him in single coverage more so than you would see against some of these other all-time great scorers, which is part of the reason that Jokic is impossible to deal with. But it's not like just the scoring threat that makes him so overwhelmingly dominant. It really is those two things, the scoring and the passing, working in tandem. I think there's a few ways to answer this question because I think that there are different types of scoring gravity. When you think about Steph, his scoring gravity fundamentally is twofold, right? Well, it's all related to the fact that he is by far the greatest shooter that we've ever seen, but there is the fact that he is this unparalleled off-ball threat because he's not just the greatest shooter ever, he's also one of the greatest and most active off-ball movers ever, so he's constantly occupying the defense's attention, even when he doesn't have the ball, creating open looks for teammates. And then there is also the fact that because his range is so absurd when you're talking about dealing with him out of pick and roll so often, you have to come up so high in your coverage. You have to put two on the basketball that on ball he can create 4-on-3s for his offense as well. So even when we talk about Steph's gravity, there's multiple different aspects to it. I would say the closest comparison, the next best thing when it comes to that off-ball gravity is Reggie Miller. I have said that I think that in terms of pure off-ball movement, Reggie is the GOAT, just a complete master in his ability to manipulate defenders, working around screens, punish overplays, backdoor cuts, and then just by far the best three-point shooter of his time. And overwhelmingly, it was that off-ball stress, that gravity that led him to lead a number of the best offenses of the 90s, even as he didn't have this super significant on-ball load, but he was crazy efficient, crazy impactful offensively. Then if you look at the other aspect of Steph's crazy gravity, right, the pure range of it all, I would say a Damian Lillard is the closest comparison when it comes to being able to force defenses to bring two defenders up to guard and pick in the roll from 30 plus feet out because you're a legitimately lethal shooting threat from that far out. And then I think there's other kinds of gravity that are also very significant. Like when I think about the two players whose scoring threats reshape the geometry of defenses most, there's two guys who are inverted. It's Steph who does it from beyond the three-point line, and then it's Shaquille O'Neal who does it from the paint, from around the basket. The ways that Shaq was guarded, absolutely preposterous when you're talking about consistent double and triple teams and frequently fronting him out of the post and like double teaming him off balls, these things that create, again, huge amounts of space and perimeter shots for his teammates. And then there's some other guys who I think are still forcing the defense to adapt such insane coverages, like a James Harden, who got to a place where once he crossed half court for a stretch, like in 2020, he was consistently getting trapped. He was so relentlessly putting defenses in a bind where they were going to slant their coverages towards him in a crazy, crazy way. I think in today's NBA, the player with the biggest on-ball scoring gravity is a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His ability to cut through, even as you try to pack the paint, load up on him, is incredible. But this is where I talk about him being such a crazy, efficient, lethal scorer that he doesn't have to necessarily make a bunch of elite playmaking reads in a given game to be an elite offensive engine. And part of that is because teams will, again, aggressively slant their defense towards him so much that he can make some pretty simple passes to create open shots for his teammates. And then I feel like you can't have this conversation without bringing up MJ, just because of how lethal as a scorer he was from everywhere inside the arc, on ball and off ball. Kevin Durant, I don't think you can omit here because of that same combination of on-ball and off-ball lethal scoring with the phenomenal three-point shooting threat. So I know that I gave a lot of names there, but that's because I think, again, this is a question that can be answered in different ways with different measures of gravity.
Yeah, I mean, I think Giannis would probably have to be another one that, like you mentioned, if you're going to bring up a guy like Shaq. I don't know. I was saying Jokic is in the sense of, like, eyes on him. Like, you just can't stop paying attention to him in the sense. Like, I was thinking more of like I don't know if you understood what I was saying, but I meant it more of like a back to the basket sense where like guys are always like saying. They're always locked on him, and like you can't afford to like to take your eyes off of a guy like Jokic. Like, I feel like he just is, the defense is always paying so much attention to him in the way that they're always paying so much attention to a guy like Steph. And I think that, I don't know, he is such a dominant scorer that his gravity is what opens up those playmaking opportunities.
But it's not purely scoring gravity. Like, if you're talking about a huge number of eyes and bodies on a guy as a back-to-the-basket player, as an interior presence, Shaq is way far beyond Jokic in that regard. Now, also, teams are
like
more
Jokic
willing to double Shaq because he's not as great a passer as Jokic, although he was a good passer. He's obviously not comparable there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Jokic is just better at punishing teams like that. That's why you can employ that coverage. So would you say that Shaq just has more gravity than him because, I don't know. That's I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is like the hammering down a specific.
I would say Shaq's pure paint scoring threat is more impactful when it comes to single-handedly generating elite team offense than Jokic's pure scoring threat. The reason that Jokic is the better offensive player is because of his versatility as a scorer. That's part of it, but more so because he is such a ridiculous processor, so brilliant dissecting defenses as a passer. That's the difference. Shaq, yes, he was a good passer. Yes, he had good paint touch, but purely his dominance, primarily overwhelmingly as a scorer inside of 10 feet, made him pretty much a walking top 5 offense for his teams for decades, made him one of the most impactful scorers and offensive players ever. So that's where, when I'm talking about this gravity, I'm more so isolating guys who have that one specific scoring trait that stresses defenses in like a crazy, crazy way. Again, Reggie's off-ball movement and shooting, Dame's pure range from beyond the arc, Shaq's unparalleled paint pressure. And again, I do think outside of Steph's three-point threat, that is what has reshaped the geometry of defenses more so than any one other trait in NBA history. Jokic is the offensive GOAT, but it's because of more of a combination of these things and specifically just the insane passing brilliance. So that's how I would answer the question. It's an interesting question, and I think that we shouted out some very good names there. Caleb says, in the NBA, where do you project or predict the current top 5 will finish their careers in terms of all players in all-time rank? Logan.
I think Wemby's going to be the greatest player of all time. I think Jokic is going to be...
Language. Hey, don't stress yourself, buddy. Just a fun
Dude,
question.
There's so many good centers. That's the only thing. Like, Wemby, I definitely see such a clear, easy path to him being the greatest player in NBA history. Jokic, it's like... Jokic is just unique. I think Jokic is going to be top 10, but it's like... I don't know how high in the top 10, and the only reason I say that is, like, I don't know. Like, him and Hakeem, I think, have very similar, like, all-time peaks. And I know we did, like, the ranking peaks thing. It's also a question of, like, how long Jokic wants to play, too. Like, that's also, I think, a big variable that we have to mention, like, with all of these players. To be clear, I think my top 5 would be Jokic, Wemby, SGA, Giannis,
Luka.
Yeah, I think that would be my top 5. I think Giannis is already. God damn, the league is so talented, man. This is an interesting question, just in the sense of like, I already think all of these guys are like top 5-ish kind of talents at their position already, like historically. Giannis, I don't know, man. I don't know if Giannis is like fringe top 10 to me. I don't think Giannis is ever going to be. I don't think he's going to have the team around him necessary to rack up like the rings, I think, necessary to creep into some of these legacy conversations. I definitely think he's talented enough. And then Luka, I don't know, Carson. I think Luka's probably the most interesting guy on this list. I think Luka will probably be the 3rd best point guard of all time, or like top 5. But I don't know if I could say that confidently. I don't think he's ever going to pass Magic or Steph. I think that's kind of off the table, in my opinion. I don't know if that's possible.
Do you think he's going to finish as a greater player all time than Shai?
No. I think Shai's going to be better than Luka all time. I think Shai's just got the clearer path. I mean, he already has the ring. He already has the finals MVP. He's got the team infrastructure where they're going to be in the hunt every year. And, like, that is where I think this debate gets really interesting. Like, if somebody still does prefer Luka to, like, SGA, right? I know that's a take that Jason has had for a long time, right? And he hasn't moved off of that. And so I always think there's going to be room for debate. But if we're talking about, like, legacy and accomplishments, and I mean, I still think there's just also a case that I still think Shai's just a better player than Luka right now. I'd rather have him on my team. So, yeah, I think Shai will end up higher than Luka. And I think Luka will probably be in the top 5 point guards of all time, or close, but I don't think he's going to get above some of the other legends.
Yeah, you got Jerry West in there. You got Oscar Robertson in there. There are some real titans at the point guard position. I am going to say Wemby will be the GOAT. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that, but that is genuinely my prediction with the trajectory he's on and how limitless his talent is. And I think Mount Rushmore, like I would confidently predict. I know that that's a crazy high bar, but if you've ever seen Victor Wembanyama, it probably makes sense to you. Jokic, I'm going to say top 8, which is some very exclusive company to be getting into. I do think that he is at a top 8 peak that we've seen in the history of the game right now, and what his advantage is potentially, once you get into this sort of range, is how long he is sustaining this absolutely ridiculous peak. Like, yes, he's only 30 right now, so we'll see how long it keeps going. But when you're just talking about a 6-year run starting in 2021, where he is averaging 27, 12, and 9 on just absolutely ridiculous efficiency. He's been a top 2 MVP candidate every single year in that time and will be again this year. I would argue that he's been the best player in the world that entire time, and quite a strong era overall. If you compare that to like the straight up peak runs that you get from like a Magic to 87 to 1990, a Larry Bird from 84 to 87, what Jokic is doing at this like truly top 10 all-time peak kind of level, it's just going on longer than it did for some of those other guys. So, greatest offensive player ever. I think there is potentially a world in which we could talk about him creeping into that top 5.
Well, I just wanted to add real quick, Carson, you're talking about the skill set. The one thing that really intrigues me about Jokic is like just how, again, I don't know how long Jokic wants to play the game for. His game could age really gracefully in the sense that he's still super impactful even when he's old if he wants to play. Like, his game is predicated on IQ, strength, and touch, and those are all things that aren't ever going to go anywhere.
I agree. I think that those are 3 traits that age incredibly well. I was about to say the same thing, Logan. So I'm with you there. Now it's going to be a question of his commitment, conditioning, all of these things, but he is only getting better now at 30 years old. He just had his best season ever offensively last year. Now he's gotten even better this year. And the impact that we talk about, just because he is, I think, the best offensive player ever, where you're talking about over these 6 years, like a plus 17 on-off differential. Nobody in the play-by-play era has had that sort of impact over that long a stretch when you're looking at on-off stuff. I think he's going to end up probably in that top 8 of all time. It's difficult to predict exactly. I mean, we got to kind of give some ranges for these guys. Giannis, I think, is already top 20. I don't personally think he's going to crack the top 10. I think top 15 is a real possibility. And I will say, when I'm talking about Jokic sustaining this peak for a pretty damn long time in the scope of like just being at this ridiculous best in the world kind of level for as long as he has now, which is not a super common thing throughout NBA history, Giannis did reach that like top 5 kind of level sooner than Jokic. I do think that Jokic is better. I think his peak is better, but we go back to 2019. That's when Giannis wins his first MVP. And ever since then, he has been a almost 30, 12, and 6 kind of guy, bringing, for the most part, high defensive impact. We know that's fallen off over the last couple years, but I mean, in the early stretch of these seasons, like he was one of the best defenders on the planet. So that's another component that is going to be very strong in his resume, just how many first-team All-NBA caliber seasons he can put together, because he's already put together a number of them, a high number. Then I think Shai is also going to finish in the top 20, would be my guess. He got off to a slower start, certainly, than, say, a Luka. Like, Luka's advantages, 5 first-team All-NBA nods in his first 6 seasons. Like, that's crazy. That's one of the best starts to a career that we've seen in this league. I do think that Shai is better now, though. I do think Shai has gotten to be so ridiculously efficient as an offensive engine that, like, I actually think I slightly prefer him to Luka as an offensive player at this point, even though, yes, Luka is clearly the better passer, right, by a good margin, a significant margin. Shai's scoring is so efficient. It is so impactful. His dominance in the possession game, I just think you put the ball in his hands overall, he is going to lead to more efficient offense for his team. That's what he's been doing for the last couple years now. And I do think with Luka, as the rim pressure has just continued to diminish, there is more variance in his game as a scorer. I think Shai truly leaves every defense helpless, especially when he's shooting the 3 like he has to start this year. He's just in like some totally unparalleled territory when it comes to efficiency, you know, shooting 59% on 2s, 38% on 3s, 89% from the line while scoring 32 a game. No guard has ever done that. He would enter only Steph territory when it comes to true shooting percentage by a 30-point per game score. And then obviously he's clearly the superior defender, where I would say that he's a slight plus overall. And I do still think that Luka, although he's in better condition, is clearly a negative. So I'm going to say Luka top 25. Luka is amazing. He got off to this ridiculous start to his career, and I think he snapped back into form this year, and he's had a bounce back for sure. I am ultimately just more confident in Shai's skill set, leading to teams that it is like pretty seamless to build a contender, a championship level team around. Obviously, he has the fact that right now he's got like one of the greatest defensive rosters around him. But of course, he is able to be a positive contributor to that group, and he can do so much to elevate that offense flawlessly, where they're able to put that kind of personnel around him. Luka, I just obviously have more concerns about how he fits into an elite team defensive context. And then I'm not as high on his offense as I was in 2023, for example, just because, again, even though things are clearly better than last year, I do think that loss of rim pressure is not insignificant to me in terms of just the scoring floor that he does have. But that's crazy, dude. I mean, 5 guys who we're talking about probably ending as top 25 players of all time. You know, that's a ridiculously high bar, man. I mean, we're talking about Dr. J and Dirk and like Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley. These are the guys who are like filling out the very back end of the top 25. And I think all of these guys have the potential to be that good or better. It's crazy. Okay, we had several questions about the Lakers and why we aren't higher on them. I'll specifically shout out this one from Jay, who says, you guys did a top 10 contenders list a day ago or so, and I just want to know why you consistently disregard the Lakers, but have teams like the Warriors, who are old, the Pistons, who are unproven, and Sixers, who we don't even know who's going to be healthy in a playoff series, over them. What's your explanation here, Logan?
Man, Lakers fans, dude. I didn't really think that was that hot of a take coming out of that episode. And then after we posted the graphics and I guess people are just, the consensus is much higher on the Lakers. Let me say this. If you think Carson and I addressed this on the show, so if you just saw the graphic, I understand this. Everybody who is in our back half of this list, we don't consider to be real contenders. So frankly, everybody on the bottom of that list, I consider to be a percentage phony. And so, sure, maybe you could slot the Lakers in at like 8, 9, or 10, and I would hear an argument because they have Luka Doncic, who could just go supernova mode and put the team on his back, and they mow down to the Western Conference Finals, okay? So that I think is important to mention, that like, okay, I would hear an argument for them in my 8 spot. Sick. The Lakers are phony in the sense that they are just not a good team. This team is not going to be able to put together the requisite defense needed to go on a playoff run. I have watched DeAndre Ayton play meaningful basketball. He is not going to get a rebound when you need it. He is not going to bust his ass in a big spot when you need him to. So that's number one. And there's just like a complete lack of cohesion and like fit. Like when you look at the other, like I think Ayton at the center spot is the biggest reason for that defense being poor. The other guys around him are poor positional defenders too. Reeves and Luka, both slow, are going to get cooked by any kind of athletic guard. And I'm sorry if former defensive player of the year Marcus Smart doesn't move me to the point where I think they're going to be a good team defense. I think the biggest reason why people are optimistic about the Lakers, again, I don't know how much people actually watch regular season basketball, so I don't know. I think that people will look at the Lakers and they'll go, oh, they have this record with Luka, and LeBron has barely been available, and the offenses look so good. And they go, oh, well, LeBron is going to come back. And in the playoffs, they have LeBron and Luka. Guys, LeBron's fucking old, man. Like, I just don't have this. LeBron is the greatest player in NBA history to me, okay? I would never disrespect the legacy or what LeBron has done in his career. But LeBron, at this stage in his career, I don't think he's a top 10 player on the planet anymore. And when I'm thinking about him and his contributions and what he could bring to a playoff run, I think he is a guy that is still not going to be able to fully exert himself for 100% of the game time. So he's going to have to load manage within games. He is going to have to load manage games, period, where he's not going to be able to play every single game for you. Beyond that, I just don't think he's impactful as he once was. The bigger issue, I don't think LeBron brings the connective skill set that this team would need. I don't know if there's a player that exists that you could just, Wemby. You could drop Wemby in here and the Lakers would be my title favorite, right? Giannis. But it's like that guy is not just going to miraculously get dropped in here and make this team a contender. I don't think LeBron is the guy that this team needs to be for them to go on a big run with the roster as currently constructed. And I don't think the roster currently constructed around LeBron and Luka is good enough. And so, like, I think this could be a really good offense because of what Luka is and the players that they have put around him. I think they have a ton of offense. Reeves, Hachimura, Ayton, Laravia. Like, they have got guys who can get LeBron. They can't play defense, and I just don't think LeBron is the guy that he would need to be to make up for all the holes in this roster. So, I don't know, Carson. I don't know. Like, I don't know if the Lakers could play a stretch of basketball good enough. They could win 10 games in a row, and I still may be sitting here going, I don't know if I really buy it. I don't know if there's anything that the Lakers could do this season outside of making a roster-altering move that would make me consider them to be contenders. If they traded Reeves for a complimentary wing, like I've been saying, maybe that would move me. But that only moves them to the last couple of spots on my list, man. Basically, in conclusion, I don't really think there's anything that the Lakers could do to actually crack the real contenders part of my list, which is the most important part.
That's interesting. I do definitely think that there is a gap between the top 5 and everybody else, as we discussed. Once you get below the group of OKC, Denver, Houston, Cleveland, Minnesota, everybody else is ultimately like pretty close to one another, even like in the 6 through 12, 13 range. And they're all like pretty good teams, but flawed teams who I have significant questions about. The Lakers ultimately fall into that group. They did just miss my top 10. I think that they have gotten off to a better start to the season than I would have expected, because I think Austin Reeves has been fantastic offensively and has taken a leap from the very good offensive player he already was. I think things for Luka have gone about as well as you could have hoped. I mean, outside of the fact that he hasn't been shooting great from beyond the arc, and yet his inside the arc shot making, his free throw drawing, like all that stuff has been so great that he's having this super productive, efficient scoring season, significantly better than last year. And so you look at this offensive big three and you think that's the most talented offensive big three in basketball. The Lakers are going to be one of the absolute best offenses in basketball. We haven't really seen LeBron at all this year outside of one game in which he just coasted. And so I understand people thinking that he's going to add a great deal to this offense because LeBron is still really good. But I continue to come back to the concern that this Lakers offense, in the time that we have seen them with Luka dating back to last season, has never actually been as elite as you would think looking at them on paper. This year, they're 12th in offensive rating. Last year, after trading for Luka, they were 14th in offensive rating. Last year, their offense really struggled against a super athletic switching defense. So I continue to say, as impressive as Luka and Reeves are, and LeBron, I agree with you, he's not a top 10 player at this point, but I still think he's a top 15 player unless we see significant regression from him this year. I just don't think you squeeze the absolute most juice out of the talent of these three guys playing them together. I think that Reeves, LeBron have some good value they provide off ball, but I do think all of these guys do primarily want to play with the ball in their hands. So it's not that the Lakers aren't a good offense. They clearly are. But for me to buy them as a contender, they would have to be like a top 3 offense, because I am so worried about the defense. And I just haven't seen the evidence yet that they're like a top 3 kind of offense. You know, this is a team that was average in net rating after trading for Luka last year. Even though they're 11-4 right now, they're average in net rating this year. And once you go beyond the big 3, I do think that they lack quality depth. I do not believe in Ayton when it comes to the things that they need from the center position. Yes, he is a good play finishing big, but I think that with the pretty disastrous defensive backcourt they have configured, with the lacking defensive personnel on the wings, they would need like an actual defensive anchor at center, and Ayton is just not that whatsoever. He's a problematic defender. So that's where I think they're really going to struggle on that side of the ball. And then the other thing that I mentioned when explaining why I left them out of my top 10 is we look at these teams that have like these big time creators in the half court offensively, and that's obviously very shiny, and you think that translates to the playoffs, and it does. But something that can hold a team back, even like the Lakers, who has that offensive big 3, is getting their asses kicked in the margins, at times being overwhelmed athletically by more athletic teams, by teams that get out in transition more. The Lakers have had the highest turnover percentage in basketball. The Lakers have had one of the worst transition scoring margins in basketball. So that's where I think they can ultimately put themselves in a deficit in these games, losing on the margins in those areas, where then they have to be so good offensively when it comes to making a deep run. And I really worry about their defensive weak points even more in a playoff setting than I do in the regular season. I just think there are multiple vulnerable defenders on the floor in key lineups pretty much at all times. So I think Jake LaRavia has been a good add for them. I think Ayton has clearly been an upgrade from what they had at center. I think Marcus Smart was a nice find on the margins, albeit he is a flawed player, but a nice find. These things just don't move me enough to say, oh yeah, the Lakers are actually the team that's going to go out there and contend. I think that they're still too flawed.
Can I ask you, what do you make of, like, you dig into some of the analytics of like Luka and LeBron last season? What do you make of the fact that the Lakers were significantly better without LeBron and were significantly better with Luka without LeBron last season? Do you put any stock into that whatsoever?
Part of it, I think, is probably a little bit of small sample size wonkiness. What concerns me more when you look at like the on-off stuff from last year is that when they had the big 3 all out there together, they were a great offensive team. They had like a 120 offensive rating, and they were a worse defensive team with a 121 defensive rating. So I don't really think that it's a situation where like LeBron steps on Luka's toes and keeps him from playing the sort of style that he wants. And I actually think they can do some things to complement each other offensively. Again, it's just you're not getting the absolute most out of all of these guys when they are playing all together. And they do have some defensive issues that can kind of compound when you've obviously got a backcourt like Luka and Reeves together. And LeBron can do some good stuff defensively at this point, but isn't consistent there. So this is where, again, I say people are probably going to look at them and say, this is their record now. They're getting LeBron back. LeBron is really good. I just don't know if he fills the gaps that this roster needs when it comes to point of attack defense, when it comes to elite off-ball scoring, if they could have some of that. When it comes to just that consistent perimeter quickness, that athleticism, wing defense, like a lot of these things that could maybe help them clean up a little bit on the margins that would ultimately be more complementary to the backcourt that has been fueling their strong start to the year. That's where I'm just like not as moved by LeBron's return probably as Lakers fans who are super optimistic are. And when it comes to the teams that our friend Jay was knocking, like the Warriors, I just think have a higher two-way ceiling. I think that even though they've struggled defensively in the non-Draymond minutes and they've struggled offensively in the non-Steph minutes, this is a team that we saw down the stretch last year for a 30-game stretch play elite defense, number one defensive rating once they traded for Jimmy Butler, and reach a really high offensive level.
Their guys actually complement each other.
Yeah, and they complement each other really well, and they have a big three that is just intuitive in that way and balanced, and their role players have actually looked better than I would have expected. Like, they've had some losses, right? Steph has sat out multiple games. That makes their record look a little bit worse. They've had kind of a grueling schedule, which is not good for an old team. But I'm not going to hit them with the old disqualifier when they went 22-5 down the stretch last year, and then they won a playoff series. And then the only reason potentially that they didn't advance further, we don't know, but is because Steph got hurt.
Yeah, and like Philadelphia, it's like, okay, hate on the Sixers. I've hated on the Sixers too. I left them off my list. I think I would have them higher than LA too because of the athletic difference in that team. Like, I think they can impose their will and get more stops than LA, you know, shocker.
And I also just think they have way more quality basketball players. What like even a Justin Edwards, what even like a Trenton Watford would do. I'm not joking. For my confidence in the Lakers team, like that would matter. I talked about how significant the DFS loss was for the Lakers team just because of how much they need somebody with that skill set. That quality 3-and-D wing is so lacking here. When I do my contender rankings, I'm more focused on upside, right? It's not who is going to win the most regular season games. It's who has the potential to make a deep playoff run. And that's where in Philly, I see this incredibly dynamic backcourt with Maxey, who has taken a leap to an all-NBA level, with a group of wings that I really like, with this transition potency, with the three-point shooting that they have, really good depth. And then it's like if you inject a pretty good version of Paul George in that he fits. If you get Joel Embiid just with his scoring gravity, still his pure rim protection, like they are already quite good and they have a lot of talent left to add that I think can enhance things further for them. That's where I'm higher on the upside with them than I am with a Lakers team, where I just feel like some of the fatal flaws are exactly that. They're just too fatal. And I feel like Philly has more paths to ultimately just being like a better all-around basketball team. So that's where we land on that. I am not going to say, like you, that I can't be moved by the Lakers. Like, if they find a way to put together a decent defense, or more likely, if this does become a top 5 kind of offense, okay, then they become a more legitimate threat in my eyes. That's not to say that they would be on the level of the Nuggets or the Rockets or the Timberwolves. I can't see that happening for LA this year. But again, if they start totally making the most of the offensive talent they have with their big three, if they start shooting the ball really well from beyond the arc, where they haven't had the best luck to start the year, that's the path I could see. And I still think with my concerns, it's probably unlikely that they're going to get there. But it's the Lakers. You know that there's going to be hype. You know that there's always going to be enthusiasm. You know, I'm not trying to like diminish this start to the year, but I do think you also have to point out last year, Logan, it was, if not 50-50, the majority opinion, at least in terms of outspoken voices, the Lakers were going to beat the Thunder. The Lakers, after trading for Luka, were better than the Thunder. So, like, I just think that context should be kept in mind.
I can't
Lakers fans tend to think every year that they are going to contend.
I can't act like I didn't get got last year. I picked them to beat the Timberwolves in round 1. Like, I got got. My thing is, my biggest thing, like, all of the issues that I laid out, I have a laundry list. Like I said, DeAndre Ayton anchoring your defense is probably like just always going to be the death knell for like that is one of the biggest hindrances. Okay, like I agree with you, man. I could see the offense coming back in LeBron figuring out how to you know what I mean? It's like as much as I'm hating on LeBron at age 40, oh my God, the greatest player of all time is going to be able to figure out how to play into an offense. Yeah, I could definitely see that, and they could make it elite. But it's like at the end of the day, I just don't think they have the defensive personnel. And so I'm not going to be moved. Maybe they could get into my 10 spot, my 9 spot. I'm not. Sorry, LA. Sorry, guys. I'm not getting God again.
Very, very definitive. I do think that they're a better team than last year because Luka is better, Reeves is better. The center situation is better, at least. I think the depth is a little bit better from like the truly desperate spot they were in last year. Although the DFS loss really hurts, but where it was like, we can only play 5 guys and we can't even play a center. Like, I think the Lakers are a better version of that team, but I do still think they have a lot of the same core problems. I really worry about the defense. I worry about the turnover margin. I worry about the transition margin. I worry about the depth. I worry about their offense reaching those elite heights. And I've said it all now, but that is the reason for my Lakers skepticism. I just want to explain that clearly because it's not coming from a place of hate or anything. Like, I'm just not super high on them as a basketball team right now. Muad'Dib asks Logan, has Shai peaked higher as a basketball player than KD did in OKC to you fellers? The Lisan Al-Gaib has asked the question, and now we must answer his call.
Wow. That's a great question. I would say yes. I think Shai is more unstoppable as a scorer. I think KD...
Wow.
Well, I would say I think Shai is more unstoppable and has a more consistent scoring floor than KD. I think KD probably has the much higher scoring ceiling because of his 3-point volume and like ability to get down like downhill to the rim for easy buckets. My thing is like we've just seen Shai in all kinds of different offensive environments and thrive, and I do think he's a better playmaker than the peak version of KD because like I don't know, I guess it depends on what if we're going with OKC KD, I would take SGA because I do think there's a decently significant playmaking gap, and I do think Shai is the better scorer at the all-time peak of their powers. That's a debate to be had. We can have that debate, but I would take Shai. If we were going with like the Golden State version, I think I would actually hear more of an argument for KD just because of some of the additional playmaking, some of the defense that we saw from KD. I just think that was a better like winning version of KD, I guess I would say, in a team context, but his job was a lot easier. And the athletic version of KD from like 2012 to 2014 is something unlike I think I've ever seen before. So I wouldn't hate on somebody taking KD, but I do think I think Shai's the more portable playoff scorer, and I think he's the better playmaker. So that's why I would go with SGA.
I've become more adamant about the fact that 2014 is KD's peak just because the more I think about it, I think a lot of the things that we praise him for in Golden State were ultimately the result of privilege, you know? Like, yes, that was definitely the best that he's ever been defensively
that's
and
just
as a
the
rim
greatest,
protector.
I don't know. That's the greatest basketball ever played.
You're
man.
playing in basketball heaven, and he was still amazing at that point. But I do think his playmaking leap actually happened in 2014, like that first leap that he took. He was already leveling up as a passer, and it is the athletic difference. The fact that, like, 2014 KD was this ridiculous rim pressure. He was getting to the free throw line 10 times a game. He was obviously every bit as lethal as a jump shooter in Golden State, and he was every bit as good as a passer, and it was the best he's defended. But when it comes to the ability to carry an offense like he was being asked to do in 2014, I do think that athletic imposition was significant, and just the crazy volume and efficiency he was able to produce with, I do believe that's when he was at his best. This is totally neck and neck for me, dude. This is so close. I do think some of it comes down to matters of preference, but I will try to answer it without totally fence-sitting as best I can. So here's kind of the breakdown as I see it. The core advantage for KD is his offensive versatility. When it comes to the fact that he was one of the most efficient volume pick and roll scorers in the game, one of the most efficient volume isolation scorers in this game, this absolutely lethal 3-level scorer, and also somebody who was so damn good operating away from the ball, shooting off movement, that balance that allowed him to play with a ball-dominant player like a Russell Westbrook and ultimately enhance whatever kind of personnel you were going to put him alongside. I do tend to be somebody who values that off-ball skill set because it does make you more portable. It does make you more versatile. It tends to make you ultimately the better ceiling-raising player because you're easier to play with other guys who need the ball in their hands. And that's where, like, you got to commend KD for what he did in Golden State. Even though it was basketball heaven, it's not like every great player in NBA history would have fit as seamlessly into that situation as he did. In fact, I think he was one of the best fits ever because of the combination of on-ball, off-ball skill set that he has. That's the case for KD. The case for Shai is, I am this one-of-a-kind offensive engine in the sense that, yes, I am very ball dominant, and maybe I don't profile as like an elite passer, elite playmaker, but I am so insanely great as a scorer with such massive volume, the biggest self-creation burden in the sport, and I am so crazy efficient, both in terms of my shot making, my finishing, my ability to get to the line and make almost 90% of my free throws, dominance at the rim, dominance from the mid-range, and he's shooting the three really well right now, but also the fact that you can put the ball in my hands as much as you can, and I am going to have the single most positive impact on the turnover margin of any offensive player in NBA history. That is what Shai is doing right now when he has the biggest self-burden creation in the sport. He's generating 50-plus points per game of total offense, and he's turning the ball over 1.8 times per game. And overall, I did this comparison of him against the other offensive guards creating with the most volume in the NBA. And just the number of empty possessions, missed shots plus turnovers that you have out of Shai is significantly lower than any of those guys, which means put the ball in his hands, you're going to get the most efficient offense out of him, which brings up the point that maybe you don't need that versatility. Maybe you don't need that off-ball value, and that Shai is the better singular offensive engine than KD. He is the better floor raiser. Just put the ball in his hands, let him go to work. He brings you to a higher floor, and that floor is really damn high. Since last year, Shai has led OKC to be a +9 relative offense in his minutes, and he has a +9 offensive on-off swing. I mean, we were talking about a guy who, even with limited creation alongside him, inconsistent three-point shooting alongside him, is leading to this dominant team offense. Again, defensively slanted personnel alongside him. That's what he's still doing for you. If you look at KD across the 13 and 14 seasons, he was leading a +7 relative offense with a +6 offensive on-off swing. So he was also dealing with some funky spacing, which he has to be commended for being as efficient, as impactful as he was in that context. But Shai is leading to the better team offense, and Shai is currently producing a bigger offensive on-off swing. Now, these are not the be-all, end-all. We're talking about just 2 years of a sample here, but I do think that's a testament to Shai's case. And then you look at the efficiency, and you think, both these guys are crazy efficient as scorers, right? Shai is giving you 32, 5, 6.5 on +7% relative true shooting. KD was giving you 32, 7.5, 5.5 on +9% relative true shooting. But again, I come back to the turnovers, and I actually think that Shai is the slightly more efficient player because he's averaging half the turnovers that 2014 KD at his absolute best was. And then defensively, if we're comparing these two versions, I think it's pretty close. I think they're both like slight positives who had the physical traits but can only buy in so much considering the context, the role, the offensive burden that they do have. Last year, I said I was still rocking with KD in this conversation because of the case that I laid out for him. I think I might be ever so slightly leaning Shai now. Like, again, I just don't think that portability matters so much when it's like we can gear a roster totally towards defense and we can have limited creators alongside you, and you can still make us like a top-tier offense. And that's what Shai is doing for his team right now. So I think I'm going to give Shai the slight nod, but like these guys are neck and neck. And I guess the final thing that I would say is if KD had given you in 2014 32, 7.5, 5.5 on +9% relative true shooting, right? If he had had a truly dominant playoff run like that at his peak in OKC, maybe I would be a little bit more moved. but I do think that he had at times some issues with turnovers in the playoffs. He had at times some issues with the pull-up shooting not being quite as lethal for him, dealing with playoff physicality. I do think that Shai is the better playmaker passer, and so that's where, even though Shai didn't have his absolute best playoff run last year, I see a world in which this year he does have definitely a better playoff run than KD ever did. So that's a great question. That's a really tough one. I had a lot to say about that one, clearly. We've got another Thunder Glaze question, Logan, because we haven't done enough of that this week, this season, and for the past couple years. But this is a great question. From Chet Mate, outside of the 60 Celtics, is this Thunder team clearly the greatest defense ever? I personally thought last year's Thunder was the best due to their ability to force turnovers and create easy offense. Now they're even better. What say you, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned on our show a million times and like on Twitter, like the absurd margins and gaps between them and the other defenses of their era. I mean, I think the only comp is like the 90s Bulls, right? Like I don't like the early 2000s Pistons. That's such a different brand of basketball. That's why, I mean, that's the most important context I think that we have to add when we're talking about this. Like the game is just so different era to era in time to time. I think the reason to me this Thunder team is so dominant is because it's the most dominant modern defense that we've had, and it's so much harder playing defense in the modern era than it ever has been. You know, when I talk to people that don't, because I do take for granted, Carson, like I've been watching football and basketball. You know, I've been watching football since I was 4. I've been watching basketball since I was like 10. And so like some of these things that I take for granted when I like think about sports, like they're just been ingrained in me. But it's like it is so much harder. And I harp on this when I'm talking to like people who are just starting to watch football or basketball. The sport is so different, and it is so much harder to play defense now in the NFL and the NBA than it was 10 to 15 years ago. Like the NFL, you know, like it was so much more physical even just 15 years ago. The level of physicality they would let people who hit the quarterback, people who hit running back. It is, I don't know if I could give you a multiplication factor. It is so much harder to play defense in the modern NFL than it was even 15 years ago. And it is probably double that, you know, 30 years ago. It is just like and I think that is so true to the NBA as well, because like people will watch 90s, 80s games and they'll go, well, why does a game look like this? Why aren't they? The game has changed. It's really as simple as that. And so the reason I think OKC is the best defense ever is because it is so hard to defend in the modern era. And one, they have such an incredible margin, like you always talk about. Like, they are so much better than any of these comparable defenses. But the fact that they are able to defend at this level in the hardest era to play defense, in the era where you have to cover the most space on defense, where the rules are slanted more towards offense than ever before, like, the game has changed. And the game used to be defensively slanted, and I think we have moved to an era where the game is offensively slanted. And so in an era of the sport where the game is offensively slanted and you have the greatest relative defense ever, that is why it's the most impressive to me, because offense has never been better, and yet the best relative defense ever is OKC's, and they consistently impose their will on the opposing team's offense, right? Like, they are controlling the game defensively. And so, yeah, I know I had a lot to say there, but, like, the fact that they are so dominant in this modern era of offense is the most impressive thing of this OKC defense to me.
It's a really interesting point, man, because I am a relative to era truther, okay? Like, the Boston Celtics of the 1960s, I can confidently say, will never be touched in terms of being the greatest defense ever, because they were surpassing their peers by a margin that will never be matched. And that was an era when defense truly could singularly lead to championships in a way that has not been possible ever since. We talk about the 3 years that they were last in offensive rating. They still won the title. They were number one in defensive rating 12 of Russell's 13 years, and that's why they won 11 titles in those 13 years. We're never going to see anything like that again. Defense cannot overwhelm offense like that in today's NBA, and so no one defense can ever be that great, that dominant, that impactful in terms of driving championships. But what you said is really interesting, because you're absolutely right in that we are now in an era where obviously defense is super important, but for the most part, it is a bit more valuable to have the great offense, a bit more essential to your championship chances. The Thunder are the first team that I look at in a long time, possibly back to the 04 Pistons. I said this last episode. Maybe you could say it's the 08 Celtics, where their defense is the single most valuable unit in the sport. Their defense is more valuable than any offense. That is an incredibly rare thing in modern basketball. So that's a really interesting point that you made. I would say, even if we are just viewing relative to era, as I like to do things, like, is this clearly the greatest defense ever outside of the 60s Celtics? I can't say clearly. You have the 99 Spurs. You have the 04 Pistons, who to me are probably still the strongest contender up against them. Like, Logan, after they traded for Sheed, they had an 88 defensive rating that year. I believe that's a relative negative 14 defensive rating. It's just they didn't sustain it for a full season. That's why it's not as high in the record books. It's still super high, but like, that's absolutely beyond comprehension.
Who do you think is the last team? Because I think it's pretty simple for the NFL. Who do you think is the last team that's won an NBA championship where their defense was better than their offense?
The 2021 Bucks, before the Thunder this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 2021 Bucks were a great defense. I would say the 2019 Raptors, when you look at that playoff run, were more so carried by their defense. But again, the Thunder take it to a totally different level. Yeah. And the Thunder have a really good offense too. But what I also hammer home when we're talking about this, we can compare straight up relative defensive ratings. And the 04 Pistons, as amazing as they were, right? I think it was like a negative 14 relative defensive rating down the stretch with Sheed. That wasn't sustained over a full season, even next year, as they had that same personnel. The Thunder right now have a negative 12.5 relative defensive rating, and they haven't sustained that over a full season yet. But that is not just the best in the play-by-play era, which is the last 3 decades. The gap between them and the number 2 defense, the 04 Spurs, another one of the best defenses ever, is the same as the gap in relative defensive rating between the number 2 defense and the number 75 defense of the last 3 decades. That is the pace that they're on. That is the pace that they're on, and that still doesn't account for how valuable and how great their defense actually is, because of the point that our friend Chet mentioned here, a point that I've hammered home a lot. No defense has ever been more impactful in terms of impacting the team's offense than the Thunder, because they forced turnovers at such a crazy rate. They were the team that forced the most steals in ages last year. They're leading the league in steals again this year, which means they're number 1 in points off of turnovers. They get a shit ton of easy transition scoring opportunities because not only do they get stops, they force mistakes, they force turnovers. That leads to easy offense. And then you have on top of that the fact that, like, they are the best interior defense in basketball. They are the number 1 rim defense. They allow the fewest makes at the basket on the lowest field goal percentage. They are clearly the best perimeter defense. They are the most switchable. They are easily the most airtight, bulletproof. They are the fastest. They are the most aggressive. They have insane length everywhere. Like, in every way, they are built to be the dominant defense and the dominant unit in today's NBA, with ridiculous, like, 4 clear all defense level players. You could argue 5, and then also phenomenal defensive depth.
Well, I mean, you know, it's funny.
Yeah.
What was the relative defensive? That's for this season, right?
This season, yeah, they're on pace to absolutely shatter the record in the
How many all defense players would you say they have?
Well, I would say that they have, I would say 5 guys are all defense caliber, because clearly Chet, clearly Caruso, clearly J-Dub, clearly Dort, and
exactly. And
I
Dub
think
hasn't
Wallace
played
is that
this
good
season.
too.
That's
Dub
crazy.
hasn't played this year. Chet didn't play for 50 games last year. Chet, who is absolutely their best defensive player, top 2 defender on the planet, in my opinion, and they still had one of the best relative defenses in the play-by-play era. They were still by far the number 1 defense in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, they took it up another level. And through the Western Conference, I believe they had the best opponent-adjusted relative defensive rating. That's how far you're holding them below their standard of any team since, I think, the 1964 Celtics.
It's so incredible to me, too. Like, And I mean, if you guys were listening to us throughout the playoffs too, like we mentioned this point a million times, but like the fact that you always talk about the built-in margin for them, Carson, and like how they do it and how unique it is that they win in these ways. But the fact that the Thunder could just have an absolute dud of an offensive game in the playoffs this last year, and yet they're winning, 96-91 or whatever. Like they just have such the fact that they can play at their lowest, like their complete offensive floor, where they're not hitting threes, everybody is clanging, where maybe Dub and Chet have an off night, and Shai just does enough to get them over the top. Like, I just think it was so impressive of all the big spots that we saw them in last year, where they could play so below their offensive ceiling and yet eke out these victories because of how great their defense is, man. It's just such a unique formula in the league today, and it is unmatched. Like, I don't know, man. I just haven't ever seen anything quite like how this OKC team is built out.
And even more so, their defense influences their offensive floor because of what we're talking about. So you can have a horrible three-point shooting game where your half-court offense is ugly, and you're still actually going to put up points because you're getting transition chances. Why? Because you're forcing a shit ton of turnovers and you're getting a shit ton of stops. Like, it all is interrelated, and it's what makes them the absolute juggernaut that they are, obviously, along with what Shai does in the possession game, getting them up a good quality shot every time on offense, and also keeping their defense out of transition situations because they never turn the ball over. Like, they just have this incredibly consistent formula. And when we talk specifically about the defense, I would take it over anybody since the 60 Celtics. That's where I'm at right now. 04 Pistons, 99 Spurs, 96 Bulls, 04 Spurs, 08 Celtics, 90 Pistons, 94 Knicks, 71 Bucks. Now I'm just naming teams, but I think those are like all the top 10 defenses outside of the Celtics, in my opinion. And this group, I just think, is better, more dominant than any of them. It's absolutely incredible. And when J-Dub is back on the floor, dude, God only knows. I'm just like watching that record, man, because I think that they should break it this year. I think that pedal to the metal, they should have the best relative defensive rating in the play-by-play era, which right now, again, they are on pace to absolutely obliterate. Okay, we've got a question from La NBA Youngboy. Am I crazy to say I prefer the upside of Duren to Mobley? I think Duren by age 25 will be better, maybe earlier. And this was sort of a theme, Logan. We had a few people concerned about Evan Mobley. We had a few people really high on Jaylen Duren. So I thought this was a nice little melding of those two issues. What do you think? Is NBA Youngboy crazy?
Yeah, a little bit. Duren, they're just different archetypes. And so, I just think there is a different kind of offensive ceiling that is involved with Evan Mobley in terms of his self-creation and what he can do by himself. The thing with Duren, and I like Duren a lot, and I think Duren has improved this year. Duren's touch at the free throw line is super impressive.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he's over 80%. The other night, like, they kept fouling him late in the game, and he kept making free throws that put Detroit, through to the finish line. So, like, I have seen improvement from Jaylen Duren, and he is still so young. I think you see some of the glimpses of like his playmaking out of the short roll sometimes too, where his assists per game aren't ever going to be really gaudy, but he does see the floor pretty well out of the short roll sometimes. Like he had a really great kick at the end of one of their games the other night for a really crucial bucket. So like, I like Duren. I think he's improved outside of some of the offensive skill areas, the playmaking and the touch. I think he's improved his defensive positioning and how he protects the rim. That was always the thing. And he's a monstrous rebounder. That is primarily where his value is coming from just being a huge athletic freak. The one thing that I would say of why I would be skeptical, one, again, I think there's just a different level of fluidity that comes with Mobley, the ball handling. We've never seen that with Duren. I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that can actually initiate something from the perimeter or a guy that you ever run your offense through at all. That's the point I would make is like their numbers may be similar. I think the context is very important where Duren also gets spoon-fed a lot of easy buckets from a guy like Cade Cunningham, and they're a great duo. And so, like, I think Duren's a great compliment to a guy like Cade. I think they have tremendous chemistry together, and I think that they fit each other like gloves. But I would think mentally about an offensive situation where Duren didn't have the luxury of playing alongside a guy like Cade Cunningham. I don't think his offensive numbers would look as pretty, where he's getting. And don't get me wrong, Mobley gets spoon-fed some looks too, right? Mitchell and Garland, and that's important to mention too. Mobley, to me, is very clearly the better defensive player. He just positioning, IQ, rim protection, mobility, agility, like just straight up like being able to cover the court, versatility. Mobley clears defensively, and then offensively too. It's like if Duren took an absurd kind of initiation leak, like maybe I would entertain it. So like I think they're both really good building blocks for the future, and I think Duren is clearly the better rebounder. But Duren's rebounding value is just not going to it's not going to completely overtake what Mobley brings in versatility. And the thing I want to hammer home about Mobley, sure, Duren is not done growing either. I still don't think Mobley is fully done tapping into what he could be offensively. I know you brought this up last episode. I still prefer Chet long-term, and I think Chet has shown us more, like when we're looking at those guys. And so I don't think he has like Chet's kind of offensive ceiling, but I do think there is more to tap into offensively with Mobley, where he's not done. He's not a finished product, just like Duren isn't a finished product either. So, like, I like Duren, but I don't know if it's particular. Like, Mobley's a top 10 building block to me still in the league today. I don't know if Duren would be that.
Yeah, keep in mind I'm an Evan Mobley truther as I answer this. I think you're a little crazy. I do. I think the biggest thing that people are losing sight of, if you're making this comparison, or people who are kind of freaking out about Mobley or whatever, is just how insane the defense really is and how much of a gap there is there. Duren has absolutely improved defensively, but we are talking about Evan Mobley, a guy who has consistently been a top 5 level defender for pretty much 5 years at this point. Somebody with a ridiculous level of switchability and excellence defending out in space, guarding wings at like a high level as a primary assignment, having the incredible footwork to move with those guys, having the length to affect their pull-up jumpers, and then also being a really, really good rim protector, somebody who can excel both at the 4 and the 5 defensively. And interrelated with that, much better defensive versatility, and I do think that's definitely his biggest edge over Duren, is just how impactful he is on that side of the ball. Mobley is the more versatile offensive player, and I do see more upside with him. I do think Duren has been playing better than Mobley this year, though. I think Duren has gotten off to an incredible start, and I think that Mobley has played below his standards. And the areas where Duren does excel, where he does have advantages, are I'm a big believer in force, in powerful players, and that translating. Jaylen Duren is one of the most powerful players in basketball right now, and you feel that with his offensive rebounding dominance. You also feel that with his monster free throw rate. You feel that with his improved driving, where he has become somebody who can take you off the dribble more so in a face-up situation, get to the basket, get to the line, and he does just have great touch. He's got great touch, so his overall play finishing, paint scoring, it's just flat out clearly been better than Mobley's this year. But what Mobley does have is a different level of passing ability and upside. Even though, like you, I think that Duren is a little underrated and underutilized as a passing big, Mobley is really quite gifted there. The ball handling with him, even though, again, Duren has started to do a little more off the dribble, like, there is a gap. Mobley is a guy who runs a considerable amount of inverted pick and rolls and is pretty damn good there. Mobley is somebody who consistently pushes in transition, just like the overall perimeter initiation that you're getting from him. It's on a totally different level. The shooting stuff that we're seeing from him, this is where I think a lot of people are overreacting to an outlier bad little finishing and touch stretch from Mobley. Now, to be clear, Duren is clearly the better finisher. Duren clearly has the better paint touch than Mobley and free throw line touch. Like, all that stuff is real. That's an area where Mobley does have to improve. And he also doesn't have the physicality as a paint player that Duren does. That being said, the fact that Mobley is shooting like 60% from the free throw line right now, the fact that his paint touch has been as off as it is, I actually think there are some positive indicators for him having a career season once he gets that stuff back to normal, because he's taking even more threes. He looks even more comfortable, like as a legitimate volume 5 3-point attempts a game kind of shooter from beyond the arc. He's taking on even more of a load as a playmaker. He's getting to the free throw line even more. Like, these are all things that I think do ultimately lead me to believe that he's actually going to be better this year than he was last year. And when you combine all that offensive versatility with the insane defensive value, I do prefer him. And you also made one good final point, which is the opportunities created for you as a play finisher. And again, Duren is the better play finisher of the two, but there's a reason that we consistently see Mobley put up way better numbers when he plays at center than when he plays at power forward. And it's because he is actually spoon-fed more of those good looks off the roll around the basket when he's at the 5. Dating back to last year when he plays without Jared Allen, per 75 possessions, 23.5 points, over 11 boards, 4 assists, over 62% true shooting, way higher free throw rate. Like, if you want to see the best version of Evan Mobley offensively, it's going to be at the 5, and we still aren't seeing that as much as I would like, and I do think that's ultimately where this team is going to get. Not that it has to be rushed, but at some point down the line. So I still see more upside with Mobley, but Duren has been one of the most impressive players in basketball this year. And for him to be producing, 21 and 12 almost on like 72% true shooting, and he's only playing 29 minutes per game, he's been fantastic. But I am a believer in the best version of Mobley being a special player. And again, sometimes these 12, 15 game sample sizes, they feel super big, and they're not yet. Like, Mobley just played at a top 15-ish level. Mobley just played at an all-NBA level for an entire season on a rapid upwards trajectory. So everybody, fear not. Things are going to be okay with Evan Mobley. Speaking, Logan, of Chet, who you mentioned, my other darling boy along with Mobley, J-Dub Enthusiast asks, current Chet or prime Gobert?
Oh, what are we asking? That's a tough question.
Who's more valuable? Who's better?
Chet. Damn, man, that's tough. I have an immense amount of respect for Rudy and what he does as a defensive floor raiser, but I also know what a detriment he can be to a team's offense in the playoffs, where I feel like Chet is just impossible of ever being a negative on that end. The career year that Chet's having offensively, the defensive player that I know he is, I still think Chet is kind of generally underrated because of his frame. I think a lot of people, Carson, build these misconceptions about Chet, and I don't think it's I think people just don't watch every single game. And so they'll see Chet and they're like, oh, this small framed guy, you know what I mean? Oh, he can't defend on the low block. And it's no, actually he can. Oh, he can't protect the rim. He's not going to be able to bang with these big bodies. And obviously there are outliers like a Jokic or something like that that's going to be able to move him around. But Chet is an awesome defender. And I still don't know if he's fully appreciated with what he can do on that end. And so, don't get me wrong, I think Gobert is one of the greatest defenders of all time, and I'm not getting peak Gobert value out of what Chet is. Maybe you're getting 75 to 80% of what Gobert is bringing you on that end, but I am getting a transformative offensive player that just isn't going to give up the kind of advantages. Rudy is an incredibly frustrating offensive player, and so while I think he gives me more defensively, clearly, he's just not as big of a hindrance as Chet would be an actual positive offensively. So that's my difference. I would take Chet. I just don't think he compromises your team as much.
I would take Chet too. The defensive point I might think is a little closer than you do. Now, I don't think that what Chet is doing right now is 2021 Gobert level, where he pretty much had all negative defenders around him and is still leading his team to be a top 3 defense. Just the level of deterrence, the level of flawless discipline with even more size, even more length than you do have from a Chet, with his utterly dominant defensive rebounding at this time. It's one of the highest defensive peaks we've ever seen. I would probably say that Chet is closer to 90% defensively of that, though, because I do think that he is an utterly ridiculous, and I do believe all-time level pure rim protector. Again, last year, this is a guy who held opposing players 16% below their average field goal percentage at the basket over the entire season, including the playoffs. And to pair that with the level of fluidity and switchability that he has, like, it's an absolute unicorn skill set. Gobert's switchability, mobility, always underrated, always overcriticized. He's consistently been solid there. He is not Chet Holmgren, though, in that regard. So I do really like that versatility that I get from Chet, but I still don't think it overcomes, even though he's an amazing interior defender, too, and pure rim protector, the overall interior defensive dominance when you put it all together that you got from a Gobert. Also, if you are talking like 2021 Gobert, he has gotten worse offensively. You know, he's always like had really bad hands, obviously, not been coordinated. He's had bad touch, but he was able to give you more like 14, 15 a game really efficiently with dominant offensive rebounding, and is one of the great screeners that we have seen in this game. So, like, I do think he definitely brought his positives offensively, but like you said, there's also always been some clear downsides with him offensively, all the issues that I mentioned. In fact, at times, his bad offense putting the team defense in a bad position where teams could go 5 out, they could go small ball, and Rudy couldn't punish them on the offensive end for that, which means they could put a shit ton of shooting out on the floor and just kind of expose this leaky Utah defense where they couldn't contain the ball, and then Gobert's rim protection wasn't as valuable as it was on average because there were shooters in every corners, and it was just kind of this routine drive and kick, pick them apart kind of game, which was not Rudy's fault defensively. But again, his offensive issues were partly responsible for them having to deal with that. So anyways, yeah, I would take Chet because I think Chet is playing like legitimately awesome offense right now. Maybe I should just say that. Like, he's giving you 20 points per game in under 30 minutes on phenomenal efficiency, over 70% true shooting, super efficient inside the arc, super efficient from beyond the arc. I just think the comfort that we are seeing from him right now as a shooter is encouraging to me, and his offensive versatility is just so impressive. What he can do in transition, what he can do as a pick and popper, what he can do as a roller, although he's not a great screener, but when he does get that touch around the rim, his fluidity, his size as a finisher, it's really impressive. And I do think that he's got the better feel. He's got more of that passing ability. You know, this is a guy who, it may only be once every couple games, but can run inverted pick and roll for you and like throw a beautiful lob pass to an Isaiah Hartenstein. What we've seen from him playing off of screens this year and just getting him more consistently evolved in the offensive game plan, I've been so encouraged with from Chet. I do think that he is clearly a better offensive player than he was last year. I think he will have a better offensive postseason than last year. It's not to say that there aren't going to be like some bumps and bruises along the way. His turnovers are up a bit as he's had a bigger offensive role. But overall, what we're getting from him, where he's consistently scoring like in the low 20s and consistently getting up, you know, at least double-digit shots every game. When you feel his offensive presence like that, I think it's just more valuable combined with the elite dominant defense than the best version of Gobert. And obviously the potential for Chet is through the roof. And right now I do think that he's playing at an all-NBA level, which Gobert was circa 2021 as well. But I think that Chet is the more complete player, clearly. And so I like that when you're talking about how does it translate across all matchups. JR Picks says, can we get some JB love on the pod? Keeping the mid-range alive and well on insane efficiency. Shout out JB. Shout out Calbert. Logan, a smirk emerges. Are you going to hate?
No, I just think Jaylen Brown needs to shave his head, man.
Oh my God, that is hating. That is hating.
That's not hating. It's all right, bro.
That was not the assignment. The assignment was glaze his mid-range. If you guys tell us to do something, this is what people don't realize. We say ask us questions, but if you give us a command, we have to obey it.
I want to do an episode where we rank like our top 10 least favorite players because Jaylen Brown is definitely on that list for me as well, man.
All right. I've had enough out of you.
Cool mid-range.
Even as somebody who is not high on Jaylen Brown usually, I think he's having a great season. 27.5 a game, 59% true shooting, over 3 mid-range makes per game, leads the NBA, even more than KD, even more than Shai. 52% from that range, doing it out of pick and roll, isolation, out of the post at times. And the Celtics are a top 10 offense, Logan, which I actually thought they were going to be a pretty good offense. It's more been their defense that has overachieved my expectations, but they're a game above 500. We've barely talked about them because it does kind of feel like the season is lost to some extent if Tatum doesn't play. but they are certainly competitive. They're winning basketball games, and Jaylen Brown is a big reason for that.
I mean, I think Keita's looked really good for them this year too. He's been like a revelation. I mean, I was really in on Keita, then I was really out on Keita, and now I find myself back in. I've been
one
impressed.
Of the first guys who was really in on Keita.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with their level of big play. Like, I thought that was going to be like the significant weak point for this team, was Keita and Garza, but I've actually been impressed. And shout out JB. The craziest thing to me about Boston this year is like how bad Derek White has been and how they've been able to overcome that. Because I thought Derek White was going to be the best player on the team for Boston this year. It's just like, I don't know. JB's handle can just frustrate me game to game sometimes, where like he just has some of the most boneheaded, sad turnovers. But the positive of this, like kind of like Triple J, like when Ja was hurt, like I wonder if this is going to help JB down the line, like when Tatum gets back, just like having really added to his bag. And, like, I don't think there's a ton of room for growth, like, long-term. Like, I don't think Jaylen Brown is going to completely transform the player that he is. But I do think some of these reps without Tatum with the ball in his hands could make him better in the long run, with some of these things on the margins, like you're talking about, like the mid-range shooting, some of the playmaking. Like, I do think that can help. And as a guy who's been skeptical of Brown as a number one, he is playing really well without Tatum. So, shout out. But shave the head, man. Let's just Jaylen Brown. I will root for it, dude. It would be so sick to have two bald guys on the same team, bro. Like that would fire me up, man. Bald D White and bald Jaylen Brown. That would make me a fan.
Bald Sam Hauser, bald Luka Garza.
Fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah.
Let's shave all their
bald
heads.
Keita, bald Garza, bald Josh Minot, man. I'm all for it,
dude. I will say, shout out Neemias Queta, dude. Because, like, that's pretty much the reason I was low on this Celtics team. I was like, the downgrade.
I thought the front court was going to be, like, worst in the league.
Queta has been really good on the offensive boards. He's been efficient. He's been productive overall. He's been a good rim protector. He has a plus 22 on-off differential for this team right now. Like, they need Neemias Queta. The Queta minutes are keeping them alive, and shout out to him. By the way, also, just look this up. Chet has a plus 22 on-court net rating this year and a plus 13 on off-swing. Again, sample size is still small, but it's not that small anymore. And shout out to Chet Holmgren. All NBA lock if the season ended today. Chet Holmgren. But shout out also to Jaylen Brown, who has really done a lot for this offense. They're 11 points per 100 possessions better offensively with him on the court. That's good stuff. Mayo Sapien. Has the MPJ Cam Johnson trade been a win for the Nuggets? I know the contract and availability were concerns for Denver, but MPJ's offensive ceiling seems like something you'd want to bank on when the playoffs come around.
Offensive ceiling?
Well, I think looking at what he's doing right now, averaging 24 a game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's been a win just yet with how Cam Johnson's been playing. Yeah. I think it will be a win. Ironically, and I don't think people are going to like this answer with how like Brooklyn's been playing, I do think there's a little bit of an addition by subtraction with MPJ not on Denver. Like, I just do think that there's more touches to go around. I think the team defense has been better. Like, there are just things that, and more importantly, I think the biggest win is addition by subtraction. Because of the new salary cap restrictions, I just think the fact that they don't have to allocate 36 million dollars to MPJ. I think the fact that you don't have to allocate that amount of money to one guy is really important. And I think you saw this in free agency this last year. Ty Jerome got like 9 to 10 million. Nickeil Alexander-Walker got like $15 million. I think you're kind of seeing a thing in the NBA where it's like, I think both of those guys are worth more money than that on a per-year basis, both Jerome and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But the interesting thing with the new salary cap is the fact that you're going to it's like a game for the general managers. You're going to have to find more guys who can give you good minutes on budget value deals because of some of the restrictions. And so MPJ, as a talented basketball player, you're going to have to moneyball some of these contracts where you go, okay, we like MPJ, but we like MPJ for $20 million. We don't like him for 36. And so you're just going to have to – there's definitely going to have to be more strategy involved. And so Maybe they'll miss his skill set individually, but I don't think they miss his skill set at the price point. I think they would much rather take on all of the players they were able to add by not having that money on the books.
Yeah. Well said, dude. Like, that's a huge point to emphasize here. It gives them the opportunity to have the offseason that they had in totality, putting together the best bench that they've had in the Jokic era, which is a part of the reason why we think this is going to be the best team that we've seen in the Jokic era. And they're off to like that sort of start to the year. The contract is a big deal. So that's why I do still think this is going to be a win for the Nuggets. I do also think Johnson is the more versatile player. I think he is more legitimate defensively. I think that he brings you more in terms of just like solid passing feel, capable ball handling. Right now, the like massive difference between these two guys is the off-ball scoring and the three-point shooting that we've seen to start this year, where MPJ has been one of the best off-ball scorers in basketball. I was somebody who thought he can't average 25 points per game just because he's so damn limited on ball. And yet, if you look at like how he's getting his offense, it is still overwhelmingly off screen, spot ups, cuts. But man, with his ability to get up quality contested shots at 6'10", off movement, any footwork from beyond the arc, which has always been his special gift, like he can get up 9 threes a game for you and make them at a high clip. And so clearly, MPJ is like off to a much better start to this season. However, I do think that Cam Johnson has the ability to give you a semblance of what MPJ does. I mean, Cam Johnson, let's not forget, last year was a guy putting up 7 threes a game, a guy who's been an automatic 40+% three-point shooter, a guy who was a super efficient scorer overall last year. And again, I don't worry about some of the mental errors, big limitations that I do with MPJ, and the contract is significantly better. So I continue to think Cam Johnson just has to play better, and he's got to lock in. But it has been like kind of a comically a lopsided appearance to start the year where like MPJ is putting up these huge numbers, even though the Nets are like the worst team in the league. And Cam Johnson is like, he's averaging 8 points per game and he's shooting 29% from three. I do think things are going to even out long-term though. And it's like you said, you got to think about the priorities on your roster. MPJ was a distant fourth in terms of the best players on this team because Aaron Gordon has gotten so damn good. And I do think you can replace the MPJ value with a player whose fit I actually like even a little bit more in Cam Johnson, cheaper. That's worth doing, and I believe it will ultimately play out that way. Sad Sports Better says, if the Pacers end up with a top 5 pick, which prospect would you most like to see alongside Tyrese and Siakam, and what implications could it have on the East for the 2026-2027 season?
I mean, I think I saw, I know you mentioned this on our show like a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Indiana, like just how this could be an awesome gap year for Indiana if they can end up because, I mean, what a masterstroke that trade was. Indiana had dealt away their first-round pick prior to the finals during the NBA final. Like, I mean, what a like strike of clairvoyance to like think
Kevin
about
Pritchard.
that.
Props to Kevin Pritchard, dude.
It's genius.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, like 2 huge trades could hugely impact the top 5 in this year's draft. Obviously, the Atlanta-New Orleans swap is more memorable and prominent, but you're absolutely right. The Pacers getting back their own pick at like seemingly the most random of times, or the least likely time you would make that trade. You'd think you've got other things on your mind. Really is great work. But who would you most like to see, Logan? How much are you into the draft early this year? Because if you want, I can take this one first because I am so excited.
I'm not super tapped in. I know about like the big dogs, kind of like how we've talked about. I think AJ would be an awesome fit for them just athletically and how he would complement Hallie. I think Darren Peterson is the best prospect, so he's my favorite fit. Just like I think I would take him above anybody else, but like the biggest thing is the lottery and just where their pick shakes out. I think if they end up with a top 3 to 4 pick, they can't lose. Like this is, and that's kind of the thing that I really like about Indiana. They have, and why they can't lose, they have so much infrastructure at every position except for center. Like point guard, right? Like having guys like McConnell and Nembhard being able to step in and fill up. At the wing spots, having Mathurin, Shepherd, right? Neesmith, power forward. You've got like Siakam and Jarris Walker. Like, I just don't think you can go wrong because there's not. The one need is obviously a center, but I think the talent at the top of this draft is so great. I wouldn't sacrifice, going positionally, saying we have to take a center to fill in that spot. That's where I think if you're like the Warriors, you end up with a James Wiseman. I wouldn't pick based on positional needs. That's much more of an NFL kind of drafting strategy. I would take the best player available. If they could luck into Peterson, he's my favorite player in the draft, so I would take him. But if their pick goes top 5, man, like Indiana is just one of the biggest winners of this gap season, and it goes as great, as a down year could.
Yeah. Right now, they're in that top 3. They're 2-13, man. Like, I don't know if they can sustain that sort of stink, but I'm going to optimistically say that they can, because I think that is literally the best case scenario for them long term. Like, obviously, you never want to see Hallie miss time. He is just a light in my life, and I love him so much. And you never want to see a player get hurt, and it's always a bummer when you lose a season coming off of a finals appearance. But I also think this gives the Pacers the best chance to actually significantly upgrade their talent to a place where, like, as good as they were last year, with how much better OKC is getting better, with like some of the rising titans that we have in this sport, the Rockets being what they are now, the Spurs on the up and up with Wemby, the Cavs in the East, you have to wonder, like, were they going to be able to replicate that run, losing a Miles Turner? Like, this is now potentially the biggest shot in the arm that you could get, especially because we know that Indiana, obviously they traded for Siakam. They're not a free agency destination. Not to say that free agency even really exists for stars in today's NBA, but nobody's going to really force their way out to get to Indiana, if you will. All 3 of these guys are special talents. All 3 of them are strong number 1 overall pick caliber talents. And I think, like you were saying, all of them could fit here. This is part of the beauty of having an offense built around a Tyrese Halliburton, somebody who leads an offense that is so predicated upon ball movement, somebody who is so great off ball, somebody who's going to get you out and play with so much pace. Like, he pretty much amplifies anybody. And I would say that Darren Peterson would be my favorite here, just because I think, like, holy shit, him being the level of off ball player that he has looked like over the first few college games. I mean, just this absolutely ridiculous shooter with great size, but also who, like, is really stressing defenses with his off-ball movement, and then also has this skill set to be an elite pick-and-roll creator, and is a really good athlete and a really good driver with great floater touch, and he's a pretty good passer, and he can more than hold his own defensively. He's got the physical traits there. He's got the stock rates. Like, that would be an incredible backcourt. And I would say, Mathurin, you're good. You're real good. We can do a sort of small ball thing where they can both be out there if we want, but I'm not prioritizing anybody over whoever I think is the best fit. AJ DeBonsa is my number 1 prospect in this class. It's very, very close between him and Peterson. I think DeBonsa has the highest ceiling because I think he has the kind of scoring skill set that is, like, genuinely one of a kind when you combine his size, his movement style, his explosive athleticism with also this funky change in pace he has, and ability to vary stride lengths, and just like this potential dominance as a driver with his potential elite pull-up shooting at his size. The pull-up shot making hasn't been elite yet, but he can get that shot off whenever he wants, and I think there's some good indicators there. Like, I think he can easily be a scoring champ in this league, and then it'll come down to, how much does he develop defensively playmaking. But because of what Peterson has already shown you off ball, because of the passing feel, because of, like, the fact that, again, he is going to be a very solid defender alongside Hallie in that backcourt, I just feel like he's the safest. Boozer, to me, is the 3rd best talent here. I think he would work in Indiana. I think he would work pretty much anywhere. I think he is the highest floor of all these guys. He's going to be the most productive and efficient college player. I think he'll win National Player of the Year. I don't think he has the same, like, crazy offensive upside that the other 2 do because of their outlier creator traits. But Boozer is somebody who is supremely strong. He's supremely versatile. He has really great feel. He's going to impact the game positively in a number of ways. And the one thing I don't love is I think he'd have to play at the 5 in Indiana, just considering the state of the position for them now there. And Siakam really is a 4. And I don't love that just because he's not like a real plus rim protector. He's a very good mover. He's switchable. He's an amazing rebounder. But I also don't think he really has like the play finishing profile of a 5. But I think it could work there. I mean, offensively, I think it would be really potent. And his ability to attack as a driver, I mean, the shooting that we've seen from him so far, I'd like to see him finish a little bit better against elite athletes, but overall, like his strength, his mismatch attacking potential, his ability to get to the rim consistently, he does a lot that I think makes anyone better. And because, again, he's also a really good passing, big forward, whatever you want to call him. I would go DP, though, if I'm saying dream scenario for Indiana. But any of those would be a dream scenario. And, yeah, I mean, the implications it could have on the East, massive, absolutely massive. And that's where I think DP and Boozer both, I would just be a little bit more confident immediately slotting them into a team where it's like, we want to contend, we need you to fill this role, than AJ, who may have the highest upside, I think he does, but also probably still has the most refinement to do in his game. But the ceiling that would unlock for Indiana would be nuts. Hoops history addresses this question just to me, but Logan, it's for both of us. How do people like you and me, who appreciate and respect the pre-merger era of the NBA, get the younger generation, those damn kids, I added that, to stop writing off guys like Bill Russell and Jerry West and stop calling them plumbers?
Just keep fighting a good fight. I don't know, man. I think there's just this natural... I think it's like getting people to care about politics. It's like you're either going to or you're not. Mm-hmm. I think you're either going to have this kind of ingrained respect and it's just going to be natural and it's something that maybe you'll have a natural inclination to like explore, or you just don't. I mean, I have a lot of conversations with my friends. It's hard. It really is hard. Like, a lot of my friends are just, like, now starting to watch basketball, or I talk about it enough, and they, like, get interested in it, and they just don't have, like, a reference point. I don't know. I find it really difficult to get people to, like, really want to watch basketball of that era, to care. Just keep hammering the points home. I don't know, man. I think it's either you kind of do or you don't.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I think it's really tough. Like, there are a lot of people who are just immediately dismissive of that. It's in black and white. I mean, obviously the players aren't nearly as skilled as they are today. It's like a totally different sport in a lot of ways. The thing that I would say is just approach it with sincerity as much as you can. Like, what happens with a lot of people, and this isn't so much dating back to pre-merger, because frankly, there's not a ton of real advocates for like basketball going that far back out there, but we see this all the time with like the Jordan debate stuff, right? Guys talking about the 90s versus today. What happens is both sides end up just insulting and trying to diminish the other era, and that leads to it feeling like it's a war and you're throwing stones at each other from your respective fortresses, and it's us versus them, and you're in your own echo chamber, and it comes to this place where it's like so funny to me that becomes such a contentious thing, because it's the same sport, man, you know, like, and we are not represented by the eras that we grew up watching. Like, I just don't know why it gets that serious and that competitive. I love basketball in all its forms, but the best thing that I would say is just, and again, this is a little bit different because we're talking about pre-merger, but the 90s guys who, you know, take all these dumb, cheap shots at today's NBA that are totally inaccurate. The second you start doing that, you're going to lose your audience. They're going to shut down. They're not going to be open to whatever you're saying. So I just come from a place of like genuinely loving the game and trying to help other people who maybe don't want to go back and watch a lot of 60s basketball or haven't done it or have these preconceived notions about it in a negative light, and say, here's how the sport was different. Here's why these players were great. Here's how they impacted the game so dramatically. Here's why, even though you may look at a Bill Russell and think, well, he doesn't look that skilled, within the context of the game at that time, he was actually the most impactful player. Here's how they laid the groundwork for what came next. Here's how rules limited them in certain ways, and things have opened up since, and that's part of the reason we've seen the offensive game flourish. But never pretend that it's like, oh yeah, if you dropped Jerry West, as great as he was, exactly into today's NBA, he'd be better than Steph Curry, right? You don't say stuff like that. Just be honest. I guess is the best thing I could say. I don't know. Some people are not going to be open to it. Some people are. And I've had like a bunch of people say, after we've been doing this stuff for years and all this trivia stuff where, I flashed all this freakish knowledge of whatever random stuff, people are like, oh, wow, I always thought Carson knew ball. And then he had Bill Russell in his top 5 all time. And that's the worst take I've ever seen. And it's like, if you're not going to be open to the conversation, to thinking about the game differently because it was a different world, that's the biggest thing. It's super different. You have to change how you think about the game.
And I think Bill is a good measuring stick for anybody like talking about basketball and like to get an insight, just because it's like, and I had a very narrow view of Bill Russell when we started talking about basketball, Carson, and you opened my eyes to how great Bill Russell actually was in the context of his era. But like, he's a good measuring stick because it's like, the fuck else do you want him to do? He won 11 championships as a player, man. It's like, there's just not a whole lot else that. Context is super important, but like I said, man, I really do. I think it's personal preference. Like, some people are just naturally going to write them off, and I don't know. It's difficult. I just think you're either going to. All we can do, I think, as fans, is just try to open the eyes of other people that actually care about the sport, and either you're going to change your mind or you're not.
And the last thing that I would hammer home is, like, again, the reason I'm so adamant about judging everybody relative to era is because everybody gets better at everything pretty much over time. Naturally, science is going to develop, skill is going to develop, strategy is going to develop, medicine is going to develop, training is going to develop. And so that's where it's like, okay, you can rag on these guys, or you can understand that they were the best they could have been at their time. And yes, the guys today are better, because everybody's better, but that doesn't take away from how these guys in the past were exceeding their peers, which is every bit as impressive, I would argue, as exceeding your peers by that same margin today. The talent is certainly better because that's the natural progression of things. And to me, part of the joy of old basketball is like some of these super unorthodox stars who you look at and you're like, boy, there's nobody like that in today's NBA. And that guy's skill set, it wouldn't work nearly the same way in today's NBA, but it worked back then. And the Bill Russell point, I mean, it's a whole conversation we can have, but what I would just emphasize is think about an era in which players were less skilled, in which there was no three-point line, and therefore the emphasis of every offense was trying to get close to the basket as much as possible, and think about the greatest deterrent, the greatest rim protector ever, the most impactful defensive player ever by far, because he had that skill set at that time when that was the most important skill set you could have, and how that singularly launched the greatest dynasty in the history of the NBA. That's my best answer on that. We had a couple questions about if Tyler Herro and Trae Young coming back are going to make their teams better, Logan. And I just wanted a real quick plug that I made a 30-something minute video which dove into those topics pretty extensively, that went out today talking about this whole no point guard phenomenon around the league and how teams are winning without point guards. And go check that out if you want. What I would say is I think that Trae makes the Hawks better when he gets back, because although there is a world in which he is so damaging to them defensively that maybe he's not a net positive, I do believe they have really good defensive personnel around him, and they can still be good on that side of the ball. They've been elite without him, but they can still be good with him, and they really need somebody with his offensive skill set in the half court to take them up a level there, the player who can take on the sort of volume that he can, a playmaker of that caliber, because even though they've been great getting out in transition, they've done a lot of fun stuff with cutting, off-ball movement, you need somebody against a good, set, serious, locked-in half-court defense who can cut through and be a legitimate creator. And none of the guys who they have right now are comfortable enough handling, breaking down a defense, making those upper echelon reads, being that kind of pull-up shooter. They need Trae to reach their ceiling, I do believe. And then Herro, some people got mad at me. I saw words like moronic being used because I said I'm actually not sure that he makes the Heat better when he gets back, because I think they are clearly a better defense with him off the floor. He's a weak link for them. They've been a top 3 defense in the games that Bam has played, and their offense has been better this year than it was last year by adopting this radical change in system where they get out in transition a ton, and it's all predicated upon no ball screens. Let's create good driving lanes, good spacing. We've got a bunch of guys who can attack off the dribble, who can make reads, and it's been this really fun, pretty good offense that I don't know that Herro fits well into because he's a super screen-dependent player. And I've seen some people saying, oh, well, Herro's a great off-ball player. Of course he's going to fit great in here. And Herro is a great shooter off-ball, a great movement shooter off-ball, all these things. But I don't know that he specifically fits well into the context of this offense because it's, again, predicated upon the ability to create an initial advantage as a driver, as the initiator, if you're a Jaime Jaquez, if you're a Davion Mitchell, the guys who have been entrusted with that responsibility, or to attack off the catch as a driver decisively, get into the teeth of the defense, and then finish or kick out or spot a cutter or whatever. And so Herro, although he's a very good off-ball shooter, good movement shooter, all that, to me is not like that level of driver, closeout attacker. Again, when he doesn't have a baked-in advantage with the ball screen, where I just don't know that you're going to get really that close to the best version of him in this very specific system. And then I do think he makes your defense worse. So we'll see, but I view them differently from Atlanta, where I'm like, Atlanta needs that half-court creator, and also Trae is just a much better half-court creator than Herro. I actually think what the Heat are doing, like, just works. I think it flat out works.
I don't have a ton to add. I mean, I basically completely agree with everything you said. Like, I think that Herro could help, and like Herro made a massive improvement last year. I thought he improved as a playmaker, as an at-rim finisher, as a pull-up shooter, like across the board. I just think Herro got better. But I agree. When I watch Miami play, I go, wow, this is seamless. The ball is free-flowing. It works. There's no defensive liabilities. Yeah. And I don't know if people are going to like this. Like, I really think the injection of Norman Powell to this team, I think Norman's archetype and how he gets his buckets so seamlessly off ball just fits in better with this team, where like he is basically just a spot up shooter and a closeout attacker. And again, like because of Norman's athletic profile, like with all this spread out space when they're running this 5-out unit, like he is just so good at attacking the advantages, creating and scoring so seamlessly with his opportunities, where with Herro, I feel like he can be more of a ball stopper. He can have a poor shot diet. And I think Herro, here's the point that I want to be clear about. I really like Tyler Herro. I banged the drum last season of all of his improvements. I think he fits better on a different team than he does Miami. I think I think Herro has positive value as a basketball player. I think he is a good basketball player. I just think he fits elsewhere. My dream scenario, and I said this last time we talked about him, if they could somehow figure out how to get him to Detroit, I really think he fits well with that team. And I don't know. I think Miami and Detroit, it could be a mutually beneficial deal if they work something out.
That could be hella sexy. Now, I'm not ready to say anything definitive because we haven't seen him play in this system yet. We haven't seen him play with this team.
It's a great point.
So we'll see how it looks, right? We don't know for sure. But Powell is a great example of somebody who, like, has blossomed in this offense. He's averaging 25 a game efficiently. It's that slashing skill set, man. It's that closeout attacking. It's that ability to get a step on you without a ball screen that makes him such a good fit. And Herro just doesn't have a skill set that works quite as well in this system, by my estimation. We'll see how it pans out. Let's see if we can do a 4-hour podcast here, Logan. God, we are answering so many of your guys' questions because they were such good questions. We haven't even gotten to the NFL section yet, so we'll pick up the pace a little bit. Imran says, at what point do we seriously reevaluate Adam Silver's tenure as NBA commissioner? Between questionable decisions and a string of controversies, how much longer are we really willing to be patient with him? Do you still trust the direction of the league under his leadership?
I don't know if we have to do a referendum. Does anybody feel good about how Adam Silver is doing as commissioner? Like, I don't think we have to look at this with rose-tinted goggles. I just don't think Adam Silver is that good of a commissioner. I miss David. Speaking of which, I don't think we brought this up. Rest in peace, Paul Tagliabue for the NFL. He passed away recently. Tagliabue is awesome, and I think you can draw some very similar parallels to Goodell and Tagliabue and Silver and Stern. Silver and Goodell aren't going anywhere. I want to hammer this point home. You know why? Because these guys are profit incentive. They are very good at lining both of their organization's owners with money. And so none of the owners are ever going to vote either of these guys out of their positions because they are so good at the back end at making sure that everybody is getting paid. So they're not going anywhere. And Goodell is the GOAT at that. I could never hate on how good Goodell is at getting people paid. You can throw out a bunch of other gripes. Silver frustrates me because I just wonder if he's just corrupt, man. Like, I don't, the corruption point of like both of these guys getting in bed with the gambling corporations, which I never liked. I think that has created a fucking spider web of issues. Oh my God, man. Like, the gambling stuff makes me sick to my stomach. And I get how that can come in as like tongue in cheek, like Carson and I, right? We were partners with DraftKings for a while. I'm not saying that. I think there is an embedded, it comes with the territory, right? That is a lot of where the sports media landscape is shaped by, because that is a huge part of it. I think it's different when we come to like we are a third party, right? We talk about these games. The NBA, it's like, what's the word I'm looking, it's like a primary source. They are directly in bed with these companies, and that's why there is a massive conflict of interest to me. And when we have stories about Jonte Porter and Terry Rozier and Malik Beasley, and I'm not saying any of these guys are guilty because you have to in a court of law. What I'm saying is it just opens up the door for every game to be looked at, and you go, how do we know? Mm-hmm. That's one of my big issues with Adam Silver and the gambling landscape in the NFL and the NBA and his tenure as commissioner. I think he should have shot that down. The bigger issue to me is him bringing the hammer down on it's just his punishments. And it's not just limited to gambling. I would say like the Kawhi thing. I want to see something get done about that. That's dirty. Yeah. That's shady. That's under the table. So punishment, I think, is a big thing with Silver. And the last component that I have issues with Adam Silver is just the direction of the league. And like, and I could make this for Goodell too. I know you're asking about Silver directly, but like Adam, the fucking stuff he was talking about with like the Euro League and getting Real Madrid in the finals, I don't know what he's getting at with that. And then Goodell, I could draw similar. We're hearing stories potentially about the NFL expanding to an NFL Europe League where we could have teams in England and Dublin. And I'm like, the logistics of that, like, we're going to play playoff games in London. We're going to have teams travel across it just, basically in summation, no. I don't like Goodell. I don't like Silver. I miss the old guard. There was a level of built-in dignity, and I don't know. I just didn't worry about some of these things on the edges, man. The direction. I didn't ever worry about, and obviously I wasn't tapped into the NBA as much, but David Stern gave me a good feeling. I was tapped into the NFL. I loved Tag LeBou when I was a kid, and how the NFL was presented. No. So basically, I worry about the direction. I don't think Silver is a good commissioner, and the bigger thing to me is just like the gambling and the fucking hornet's nest, the wasp's nest that is the gambling epidemic. And I don't like Silver, man. I think even more than Goodell, I think Silver's probably my least favorite commissioner.
I'm not a fan. And I think that when he came in, he sort of garnered some good faith with how he handled the Donald Sterling situation, right? That was like the big first challenge that was put on his plate. And with the fact that they came down swiftly and they expelled him from the league, it was like, okay, this is a younger, more progressive, sort of modern commissioner for this very progressive young league, the NBA. But like, ultimately, I mean, what a layup, like the most racist guy ever, the most abhorrent guy ever, where there's this mountain of evidence, you kick him out of the league. Like, I just think that's what his crowning achievement. And that happened like within the first few months of his tenure. And ultimately, I do think it was a pretty straightforward decision. And since then, he's like kind of fumbled his way through a lot of issues. I just don't think he's a particularly good problem solver. And I just don't think he's a particularly good communicator. Like, I don't think he knows how to advocate for his own product, a product that I actually think is great. And yet it's undergoing this PR crisis where every year we have these conversations about ratings, and this is the problem with the NBA, that's the problem with the NBA. And he doesn't help these issues when he comes out and he says on ESPN, yeah, we're considering shortening the game to have 10-minute quarters to speed it up, to make it a better product.
We're a clip league. We're a clip league.
We're a highlight league, so fans don't need access. It's like, do you understand what makes your league great? Do you understand that your league is great? And then when it comes to the problems that are plaguing the league, he doesn't fix them.
The other thing I was just going to add is you're talking about the streaming services. That's a huge other issue of the NBA and the NFL in general. I think the NBA is slightly better, but it's still not great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that corporate greed is just going to win out there every day of the week. Like, that sucks for the consumer. I don't know that there was a way to navigate around that realistically, which like sucks to say because we all lose, those of us who are not profiting from these deals. But I do think that's kind of an inevitability in like today's media landscape. But some of these things I'm not going to say like there's an easy solution for, right? But the fact that you think about the things that have been ongoing issues, the All-Star game, which I don't care about that much, but obviously it's gotten way worse. He certainly hasn't figured that out. It's a tricky issue, but like he hasn't helped there. The injuries to stars, like I think that this is clearly a consequences of the modern NBA game. The way that the game is played, the fact that there is so much pace, that there is so much ground to cover, it's just so taxing on the body. And again, like that's a tricky issue, right? Because obviously load management was prevalent, and yet it wasn't really actually keeping stars healthy when you look at like the playoffs, and the league was under a ton of criticism for that. Then he comes back and he's like, okay, our solution is a 65 game minimum, so we're going to diminish load management. Well, now this like star injury issue has gotten even worse. So again, tough issue. He certainly hasn't helped on that regard though. And the area where I would be most critical of him is in regards to these recent scandals that we've seen. This gambling debacle has been a total disaster. And the most damning thing to me is going to be if there is substantial evidence against Terry Rozier, who has been arrested by the FBI and who I believe is going to stand trial in a few days, and the NBA cleared him of his investigation, cleared him, that to me will be inexplicable. And I believe it was Wendy who said, like, there were rumblings that Silver just wanted to keep this thing quiet. I'm sorry, man. That's a cardinal sin. You lose all credibility when you are more preoccupied with trying to preserve your image by keeping down this scandal that eventually is going to come out than you are with actually preserving the integrity of the league.
Yeah, and condemning the guy, yeah.
Like, that's the only possible course of action to me. When you open Pandora's box, and as you're saying, as a league, you fully endorse and partner with all of these gambling corporations, the one thing you can do is say, when there is a violation by a player, we are coming down hard because we have to create a strong disincentive, and that's maybe the only way that we can keep this from growing into a bigger issue. If you are actively conceding to them, if you are actively being permissive and saying we know things are worse than we're letting on, and I'm sure they'll say whatever, the investigation was done by a third party like they're saying with the Clippers thing, but like I don't buy that, dude. I don't buy that absolves them of their responsibility here, and this Clippers thing is huge. We'll see what happens. I get it. It's a process. I think there's overwhelming clear evidence about where the Clippers did wrong in terms of cap circumvention. And there's part of me that wonders if Adam Silver is hoping again that this will just kind of go away, that it will get quiet. And if he doesn't crack down on this, an issue that they have specifically said is a high priority for the league, right? Not allowing cap circumvention. Like, why is anybody going to respect the rules of the league? Like, I don't see the value in being permissive of cheating, of going outside the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what does that do for the perception of the legitimacy of the league? It's just all bad.
Exactly.
So, like, I'm out on Silver, pretty much. This is a moment, though, where he has to at least show me something. But regardless, I think there's just been too many missteps for me to be like, yay, Adam Silver. Like, I think he's bad. I think he's bad at his job.
I think he is, too. And the other thing that bothers me about the gambling thing, one, just the raw outcomes of games, right? Like guys just point shaving, fixing games. And the reason you hear it from, I'm pretty sure this is the, maybe don't quote me on this. I think I read in the article, like Terry owed somebody money or something, like he, or it was like IRS debt or something like that, and he was trying to pay that off. And so, like, one, that is an issue of players with bad money management. They get into some trouble like that, and they say, oh, shit, this is my only way out. I got to do this. What really bothers me is the ripple effects because, one, gambling is so prevalent. It is not only just prevalent in the NBA today. It's prevalent in basically all areas of our society where we see like video games employing gambling tactics. I just think it's bad for our society in general, the implementation of it and basically, you know, everything. But the thing that bothers me is, Carson, so the NBA promotes gambling to all these people to bet on all these games. What if we can pinpoint certain games where guys were throwing games? Doesn't that open up the NBA to like a lawsuit or something for people who were betting on these games? And like if it's proven, like what is the...
I know it does the sports books, at least.
Like, what is the fallout from that where, okay, what's the next? And I get this isn't like a direct Adam Silver thing, and I don't know how he could help, but like, it just makes me wonder, okay, they proved Terry was throwing X amount of game. What do you do for the, I don't know, let's say 5,000 people bet on this game, right? I don't know. I feel like that's short. What do you do for the 5,000 people that bet on that game? How do you make them whole? Because they got fucked.
And here's the even more specific, funny, unfortunate thing about it. If you have like substantial illegal activity on one side of a line, right? Because Terry Rozier has said, allegedly, okay, I wouldn't know anything about this sort of thing. But like Jonte Porter, because we know that he did it, okay? Bet my under on this and that. That is going to further move the line down because of that outsized activity by people who are in the know, by people who is told to bet on this thing. That is going to lead bettors to look at that and think, that's an unusually low line. I should bet the over on that. That's miscalibrated. So you're even further fucking people like that. Like, it's just a disaster. And if you don't come out down hard on it, like, it's just a really bad look for the league. And at some point, you have to put a stop. You have to put a stop to these problems. And Adam Silver has not been authoritative in doing that.
I just think we've reached a point of no return, Carson. I think it is now so fundamentally, like, I think the NFL and NBA are in bed with these companies so much. Like, I don't think there's any going back. You know, like, my favorite solution to all of this would be cut ties. Like, you're not just get out of bed with the sports book,
Never going to happen.
But we're past that point, man.
The bottom line dictating everything is unfortunate for us as consumers. And I think this is related with our next question from Avery, who says, what's your solution to all the injuries going on around the NBA? Can the NBA reduce the number of games played? It's the only professional sports league where its best players don't play every night, barring significant injury. I'm at a place now, Logan, where I think the season has to be shortened. I think we have to get to 66 games or 72 games. I think we have to essentially eliminate back-to-backs. I think although you will have fewer total games, obviously, you will get more out of each game. You will have stars playing a higher percentage of games, healthier, with higher stakes on each game. Each game matters more when there's fewer of them. And it'll be an all-around net positive for the product, with the only exception being a little bit less revenue for the NBA. And because that is the only exception, it's probably never going to happen, or not going to happen for a while.
I would say revenue, and then the other ripple effect of this, and obviously it sucks for like historical stuff, but the skewed numbers, right? You know, having 10 less games per, there would be some sort of, but I think I agree with you in the net positive thing. Like, I think that there are just so many more positive outcomes of shortening the season. I can't remember who suggested this. I think the correct course of action for the NBA, 2 to 4 expansion teams, maybe more, maybe 2 to 6. I think there is such a surplus of talent across the globe, internationally and in the NBA today, where guys can't get on the floor. I think you need to expand the league and add more teams, which would also help in the revenue department, because now you have, obviously you're having less games, but you now have more, and shortening the season by 10 to 20 games. And like you said, guys are going to play more games. Every one of those games mean more now. And like, it just excites me. Like at the end of the year, when we get to April or, you know, post All-Star break, there's going to be less teams throwing in the towel. They're going to, we got to kick into gear. This is the most important stretch. So keep the season length the same. I think you go October to July, but you spread the games out more. You shorten the season, you expand the NBA. I completely agree with you, Carson. That's where I'm at with the league now. I just don't think we can keep the injury problems just keep getting worse and worse.
I saw a stat. I believe that stars have played something like 60-something% of possible games. We're in November, dude. We're not in March. We're not even at the point where like the physical wear and tear should have really built up. We're not at the point where it's like, okay, we know that we're going to be in the playoffs. We'll take a few games off, or we know that we're going to suck. We're going to start the tank. Like, we're early in the year, and guys are struggling to stay on the floor more than ever before. And listen, I didn't watch the NBC MJ load management thing, whatever he did, but I thought like this segment, whatever they're going to say, it's a few years late because again, load management still exists in today's NBA, right? But the 65 game minimum diminished it. I do believe that it had that effect. The problem is not nearly as much load management as it is guys legitimately getting hurt. And maybe, yeah, you're not going to play through a 50-50 injury when you have an 82 game regular season and there's less recovery time and there's less urgency for each game. So I just think we have to lighten the load on these guys. We have to space out games more. Again, it's a more physically taxing game than it's ever been because of all the space that has to be covered. The solutions that have been tried up to this point haven't worked. And I think the NBA has to see the big picture here. I think they have to understand, yeah, okay, we'll compromise maybe 10% of our revenue right now, right? The TV deals, they'll get a little bit smaller. The contracts, they'll get a little bit smaller in the short term. I think it'll make the product better. I think it'll make the sport better. I think every game on average will be better. Stars will be more available. All these things ultimately make the NBA a better league. You know, it's not just literally, let's think, how can we squeeze every last dollar out of every game we have on the schedule this year? It's how are we the best league we can be in a decade? And when one of the biggest crises that you're facing is star availability, guys not playing close to 82 games, are you getting the most out of every game? Are you ultimately putting out the best product that you can? The answer is no. So I think actually even financially, there's probably a long-term benefit for the NBA in making this change. That being said, I don't expect it to happen. I do not. But I used to be somebody, you know, Logan, 5 years ago, I was a traditionalist. I was like 82 games. No, all the records are going to be fucked up. I don't care anymore. I just want to see the best players on the court.
100p.
So you mentioned this, so we can breeze through it. Braden says, I personally think there's never been a better time for an NBA expansion. The league is the best skill-wise it's ever been, and now more than ever, very talented players are playing in different leagues and overseas. Could a 2-team expansion for each conference not only benefit the game, but would bring in 4 new markets for new basketball fans?
Completely agree. Vegas, Seattle, it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's more likely it's 2 teams and it's those 2
I
cities.
Think Memphis probably gets bumped to the east or something like
Maybe
that.
Minnesota, New
or
Orleans.
not Milwaukee. Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah, exactly.
And 32 is a nice even number. You know, you could restructure it so it's 4 divisions of 4 in each conference like the NFL does. I completely agree. I think there's so much talent. I think we could easily add 2 teams and we would not be diluting the talent in a negative way. I think it would actually be fun. We'd see more respectable NBA level players on the floor. There'd be a couple more markets engaged. And that's a way to make up a little bit of revenue lost from shortening the schedule if they were to do that, which they're not going to do. So yes,
exactly. I also think you'd find some gems of guys that have never gotten an opportunity to actually go and ball out. Like I think there's so much talent that we see every year come up from the G League and perform. Like I just think there are some diamonds in the rough that never get any burn. That there are so many talented basketball players on the planet today.
I agree, and I don't think an expansion draft would ever be more fruitful. Like, you can protect 7 guys, I think is the rule. Like, believe it or not, you're actually going to get some good players who are, you know, the 8th guy on a team. If you think about, like, OKC, the depth they have, I think about even a team like the Heat. I just really like a lot of their players. You're absolutely right. There are more diamonds in the rough emerging, and so let's spread the wealth a little bit. Let's spread the love. Okay, Cheeseheads in the Bear podcast. This will be a segue topic for us. Asks, who's the NBA player that would be best in the NFL? Who's the NFL player that would be best in the NBA?
This is an awesome question. Myles Garrett? I don't know, man. Dude, I think the more and more I think about it, you know, that's like a time-old NBA. I really think NFL players could do it pretty easily. Like, I have moved over to that where NBA guys are like, oh, I could play, you know, NFL football. I think it would be a lot easier for NFL players to play in the NBA than vice versa.
I couldn't disagree more.
Really? I don't think NBA guys are up to the injuries and the physicality and the brutality of the NFL. I don't think NBA guys are up for.
I think that NBA athletes are pretty clearly the best on the planet. And the reason I say that is, first of all, NFL athletes are able to specialize way more, right? They have much more specific responsibilities, which require very specific athletic traits. NBA players, especially in today's NBA, pretty much have to be able to do everything on the court. They have to be fluid, they have to be skilled, they have to be coordinated, they have to be athletic, as they are literal human giants. I think the specific concoction of NBA skill sets, like the craziest thing to me is like people will post a clip of Micah Parsons dunking and they're like, you think he couldn't play in the NBA? I'm like, bro, Micah Parsons, by the way, he's a freak NFL athlete. Look at how he moves on a basketball court. He moves like a fucking like low D3 power forward. Like there's no NBA fluidity, shiftiness. He doesn't have that movement style. Myles Garrett couldn't do anything in the NBA. He couldn't. He doesn't have that build. He doesn't have that skill set. He doesn't move like a basketball player. It's a more unique thing. I think if you put Donovan Mitchell at wide receiver, do you not think that he has the right concoction of footwork, explosiveness, change in direction?
Sure.
He's got the build. Don't tell me he doesn't have the build. He's jacked.
I think
he's got the size. He's got the length.
I think Donovan Mitchell gets broken in half, man.
I don't think so. I think Donovan Mitchell has a good build to absorb contact.
Like, I don't know. It's a tough question because, like, I look at somebody like I think some of the centers in the league would be like good offense, or not centers, maybe like power forwards would be like great offensive linemen or defensive linemen, right? Like, I think they could do it. I just, by and large, it is the physicality difference in how the game is played. I don't. NFL
what about
players,
the classic LeBron? You don't think LeBron would transport better to the NFL than any vice versa?
I think NFL players. Agree. I think the NFL is. I think football is such a brutal sport. I think that is a general. I think NFL players are crazy.
LeBron was an all-state football player.
Sure. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he could play. I think he would. I think there's my difference is mentality. I think there's a mentality difference that's separate. And don't get me wrong, I think you're making great points, Carson. I think there are actual athletic differences that you could point to that would make, like, viability. I am going with the mentality side. I think the NFL is a fucking brutal sport that NBA players would not be able to last in, man.
What about your boy Ant? What about your darling boy
Ant could do anything. Ant, that's the right pick. Ant would be the best player in the NFL. Ant could do anything. I think Ant could have played fucking two guys. I'll give you. Ant, Steph Curry. I think they're figuring out whatever. I think you could make. I think Steph would have been the greatest horse rider of all time. I think Steph would have been the greatest surgeon of all time, man. I think whatever Steph and Ant did, they would have been the goats at, bruh.
Because Steph is maybe the most coordinated human being to ever exist. And I just think that's where there's a different level of coordination. I mean, the number of traits you have to be able to string together to excel at a basketball player. First of all, you're probably fucking at least 6'6". You have to be able to have the ball on a string. You have to be able to quickly change direction. You have to be able to change pace. You have to be able to navigate tight spaces. You have to have touch. You have to have vision. Like, it's just crazy. So actually, I've gotten to the point where Jettas,
I think
he was one of my picks.
Yeah, I think he would
he's
tear
one
up
of the
a
guys.
court.
Listen, I still don't know. I don't know if the guy can put the ball on the floor. I don't know if the guy can shoot. But when I think about just like the footwork he has, the balance, the body control, the coordination that he has with his upper body, the vision
Travis
he
Hunter.
has, like maybe, I don't know, maybe like obviously
Lamar Jackson.
Again, I just think you throwing out these guys as if they're more valid than me throwing out Donovan Mitchell, LeBron, Ant. Like, I think the NBA guys have more athletic traits that clearly translate to, say, put them at receiver, right? And I think that they check every box. They also jump ridiculously high. Like, these dudes can play in the sky. I think it's really the NBA to receiver. But, like, you know, we talk about the fastest 40 times ever from NFL players, right? And Xavier Worthy has the official record. You know what Derrick Rose's 40 time was? It's like a 4.12. Russell Westbrook's was like in the 4.1s.
Devin Carter
like
would be the greatest wideout of all time.
Not Devin Carter. Definitely not Devin Carter. Don't put me on the record there. I just think it's a crazier entire skill set that is required in the NBA. But here's what I'll say. The archetype that I have started to think more so could maybe translate to the NBA. It's not like, oh, you're going to put a guy in the NBA and he's going to be a star, right? Believe it or not, a Micah Parsons, even though he can dunk, right? He doesn't move anything like an NBA player. I wonder if it's more so like, give me a big, long-ass, built, athletic receiver and we'll put him on the wings and it'll be like more of a 3-and-D guy where he doesn't have to be maybe as skilled as a ball handler and like have these crazy, crazy NBA traits. But ultimately, I do think, like, if you said, Anthony Edwards, we are going to develop you as a football player, LeBron,
I'll say
Donovan
this.
Mitchell, I just think these guys have better chances of making the switch than vice versa.
I think most of these guys are freak athletes and probably could have done whatever the hell they wanted to do. They could have, a lot of these guys are literally
Maybe.
just picking between sports. Like, so I don't know. Maybe they all could just play both.
Some of them, yeah. But I don't know, dude. I'm going to move on. Here's the last thing I'll say. Think about most of, like, the football players who were notably, like, good basketball players at all. Most of them are literally, like, these tight ends who were clunky-ass power forwards that were not even very good in college. It's like Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, but a lot of them
it's like Tony
were
Gonzalez.
forced to,
it's like Antonio Gates.
A lot of these guys were forced to play football and football only. Like in high school, like Darnold or a Drake Maye or like a Big Ben. They all played basketball in high school, but they all were forced.
Drake Maye could have done whatever he wanted.
Drake Maye could have done whatever he wanted. Yeah, he would have figured it out. Like, I think that's also a component. Normally you'll see more football players who also play basketball, or excuse me, I don't know. I guess it is kind of both, but
yeah, it's both.
I don't know.
I think more so if you're a basketball coach, you don't want your star playing football than
my
vice
thing
versa,
with my thing with
about
football
injuries
players,
there.
it's like a LeBron or a KD or like some of these really tall guys. Like I do think there is a height limit to where this could translate, where you're going with like, somebody's
LeBron.
hitting LeBron and his knee is done, or somebody's hitting KD and KD's like.
So you're just purely taking the injuries angle here. You're saying they're going to get hurt.
No,
Logan, if Harold Carmichael could do it,
dude,
LeBron, Ramon
I don't know,
James
man.
could
I'm
do
just
it.
saying, bro. There is definitely a physical height component where
KD is not my pick. No, I don't think any 7-footers. Like, I think Wemby is the freakiest athlete in the NBA, all things considered. I don't think he could play in the NFL. But I think
he'd
when
be
you
a
hit
great.
that sweet
Oh my
spot,
god, dude, he would be awesome on special teams, bro. He's blocking
Insane.
every field goal ever.
He'd be like, hey, the Mad Stork, Ted Hendricks. Yeah,
Bro,
you want to see the next evolution of that?
Bro, you could put Wemby on like a deep field goal. You could put him in front of the field goal post in the end zone and just have him fucking block it from there.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question. We'll never know the answer ultimately, but I do believe in my answer. I do believe that NBA players are the craziest and ultimately the most versatile athletes. Like, I really do think they are the guys who most could do anything. The combination of crazy athleticism and coordination and size, and in all of these different ways, right? Where it's not specialization of skill set and athleticism. To me, it's the craziest. Let's get to some NFL questions. Guy says, what do you guys think about the fans calling for Andy Reid to be fired? Do you think the Chiefs' problems are due to him?
No.
Okay, there you go.
Fucking Chiefs fans are so spoiled, man. What one 500 season does to a Chiefs fan, and they're ready to fucking fire a top 5 coach of all time. Get over yourselves, you jackasses. No, they haven't played well in one-score games, man. Like that's the difference. They haven't executed in big spots. I'm sorry, you guys aren't 10-0, and go fuck yourselves, Chiefs fans.
Whoa!
Damn, man.
Logan,
dude, there's just a difference, man. It's like there's Steelers fans calling for Mike Tomlin a Hall of Fame coach because he hasn't won a playoff game in 10 years since Obama was in office. That's justified. Guys, you went to the bowl last year. You have the greatest quarterback and head coach tandem in NFL history. Maybe, and I'm saying offensively, right, because it's Belichick and Brady, but it's like the next comp is Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. Like, get a fucking grip, man.
Logan Camden, ladies and gentlemen, that's his take. My take is that's too much to call for Andy's head. I mean, with everything he's done, but I don't think he's had a good season. We've talked about this, the play calling at times being stale, at times being a little too cute. It just feels like they haven't really ever found the right balance with the run game. Like, I think a lot of people
I think
have
the
been
bigger
critical.
issue is they don't have a starting running back.
Well, yeah, we talked about this, the lowest explosive run rate of this century. That's where I get it. I would have liked to see them run the ball more against Denver. I think they got very predictable with Denver, the best pass defense in football, being able to play every down, knowing that it was going to be a pass. But also, it's like when you hit 0 home runs on the ground and you have Patrick Mahomes, you see why you want to lean on the pass. I think Both Reid and Spags have not had their best seasons. I think the Chiefs have been a little more predictable on both sides of the ball. I think their clutch execution hasn't been as good, and that is both coaching and players. I also think, as you mentioned, luck is definitely a component that has worked against them here. So in totality, I'm going to say he's Andy Reid. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's okay. But there has been this interesting trend of like post-Bieniemy leaving, Chiefs offenses haven't been the same. And they haven't had the same firepower for the most part. This year, they do have the firepower, and I actually think this year's offense is really good. So, I don't know. This feels a little bit panicky, is what I would say. And maybe a little bit spoiled, like you're saying. Chico says, Herbert or Burrow? I'll give you the correct answer. Herbert. Oh, that's great. That's the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Justin Herbert, dude. It blows my mind. Oh, I saw the dumbest clip ever of these people trying to slander Herbert. It was the funniest thing. It was from First Things First. And it was Nick Wright and his buddy, whatever his buddy's name is. Not Broussard, the white fella, the cracker, the honky. And they were like going in circles saying like, well, if Justin Herbert's offensive line is so bad, how is he playing so well? Like his offensive line can't be that bad. And it's like, guys, you're literally laying out why he's so impressive. This guy has the worst offensive line in football, and he is still able to carry the offense like he can. The game where he had 2.2 seconds time to throw and still got pressured on more than 40% of dropbacks and still had a really good game. I know that he didn't have a good game this past week, but we say it all the time. The guy's literally playing in a football hell simulator. And
number 2 pressure rate this season, still just behind 9.
It's crazy, dude. Ooh, 9. Yikes. It's unbelievable. He's got all the traits that I want. He's got great mobility. He's got phenomenal size. He's got great pocket presence. He's got a rocket of an arm. He's got an extremely accurate arm. He's a great decision maker, great processor. Like, he checks every box. And Burrow is really good. Burrow doesn't have the same elite athletic traits that Herbert does. And Burrow has had the luxury of playing with one of the best receiving cores that we've ever seen. And I understand, Burrow's offensive line hasn't been good. Herbert's this year has been way fucking worse than what Burrow was dealing with. He is constantly asked to overcome, and he does a pretty damn good job of it. The fact that he has won as many games as he has. Wins are the criticism against him, right? And he's got the 5th most wins since he came into the league, as his run games have always sucked, as his defenses have always sucked, as his offensive line, for the most part, has sucked. And then they got this great tackle tandem, and then they both died. Like, it's Jay Herbo. Brennan asks, who's the best player in the NFL right now?
Mahomes. Oh. I mean, like, I guess it depends on, like, if you were going, like, positionally. My 2 best players in the NFL will be Patrick Mahomes and Myles Garrett, offensively and defensively. Like, I don't know. Like, I remember we did that. I remember we had that one conversation where we were talking about, like, best relative to position, where we thought, okay, maybe Brandon Aubrey, maybe like other, where it's like maybe not as deep depth wise in terms, but I would say Mahomes and Garrett would be my choices.
It's gonna be Myles Garrett for me, man. I just think, the level that he is playing at so consistently, it's absolutely absurd. It's all-time great stuff at his position. He has, 16 sacks now, or is it 15
He's got 15
sacks?
right now. He is on a trajectory to break the single-season sack record, which should be T.J. Watt's, but I digress.
Yeah, I know. And he's going to be top 2 probably in NFL history in tackles for loss this year, as he has this ridiculously high double team rate, and he's an absolute pressure machine. Like, to have 2 games in one season where you have 4+ sacks, dude, come on. I think it's him. I think he's not the most valuable because quarterbacks exist, but I do think that he is the best player in the NFL. Boston Pacers, interesting combination, asks, where do you see the ceiling of Drake Maye and this Patriots team being?
This season?
Well, it's not specified, Logan. I'm guessing as much as you are.
I think Maye has the potential to be the best quarterback on the planet one day. I think the Patriots have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay. I think Drake Maye pretty much has no ceiling. I think he can be the best quarterback in football. It's hard for me to see the Patriots winning it all this year. I still just worry about the offensive infrastructure around him, and I think the defense is good, but I'm like, is the defense genuinely elite? But everybody's flawed. And if they get the 1 seed, it's like that opens a path up for you. So I can't rule it out. I guess if you're saying what is the absolute ceiling, I guess it is them winning the Super Bowl. But that to me is not likely. And when I say that, I mean they're probably not even among the first handful of teams that I would have, but then they're right there after that. But if they do win, it's probably going to be because Drake Maye is absolutely insane.
I mean, dude, it is pretty
crazy. We got to elevate him into some crazy conversations real fast, which we already do.
There still is a chance, and the reason I say Drake Maye could win the Super Bowl, anytime we've talked about the AFC playoff race over the past few years, the reason that I've been skeptical of anybody except the top dogs is because traditionally you have to go through Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, and you have to take down Cincinnati, or Los Angeles. And so you think about all of the quarterbacks that you would have to run through potentially. Allen, Jackson, Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow. There's a chance that two of the Bengals aren't going to make it. The Chargers are they have a chance. But there's an opportunity that the Chiefs, the Bills, and or the Ravens could all miss the playoffs, which opens that door wide open to a Patriots, a Broncos, a Jackson. Who knows, Colts. Man? I don't know. A Colts Super Bowl. This season is so wonky and weird. And with the Bills losing to Houston, with Kansas City struggles, Baltimore's slow start, there is a chance that two of those three or all three of those teams can make the playoffs, which opens the door wide open for somebody.
Yeah. I still with New England. I think that they're contenders for sure. I worry about the run game. I worry about the offensive line, and the receivers are okay, but it's incredible that Drake Maye has made this offense as good as it is. There are just more talented teams. Maybe he makes up for that. This year is crazy. And you make a good point, Logan. Now, personally, I still think probably individually the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs all make the playoffs, but is the probability that all of those teams make the playoffs over 50%? If you were to run a simulator, it would probably tell you no. And if you knock out one of them, and if all of them are going to be going on the road, none of them are hosting playoff games, it does change things a bit. So it's clearly the most wide open that things have been in a while, which leads to this question from Chinadoom, who asks, so are the Broncos going to make the top 10 contenders list?
No.
Whoa! Wow. Okay, explain. They are going to make my list.
They were, last time we did it, I think they were number 11 for me. I think the Broncos were my first team off. Who was my last team on? Why are they going to make your list? Give your spiel.
I just think the defense is that insane. They're still not going to be, in the upper half of my list, but this is what I've talked about where I still really do not like the offense. They are 24th in yards per drive. They're 23rd in points per drive. Even in their impressive wins, they have had these extended offensive lulls, and yet defensively, they're number one in net yards per pass attempt allowed. They're number one in yards per rush allowed. They're number one in yards per play allowed. Since the 2015 Broncos, they have the highest mark in a decade there. They're the number one third down defense. They're the number one red zone defense. They're going to probably break the sack record. They're on pace to do it. They have a ridiculous pass rush. They have a ridiculous secondary. I just think we're getting to a point where it's everybody is vulnerable, clearly. And even though I do believe in the importance and how crucial it is to have offensive firepower if you want to go out there and win it all, this feels like a year where, maybe you can win a couple playoff games just off of defensive dominance. I don't know. I think the Broncos and the Texans defenses are so insane. And having just gotten a nice treat to watch the Buffalo Bills get eaten alive by that Texans defense. Josh Allen sacked 8 times. Josh Allen pressured God knows how many times. It was ridiculous. A good offensive line getting dominated. And I think Denver's defense is probably still a tiny bit better than Houston's, but I think they're two of the best defenses we've seen in the last decade. And if you're that great, it just lowers the bar a bit for your offense. So to get into my top 10, I'll have them there. I'm still not the Denver guy, the Denver believer, because of how I feel about the offense, which is not good. But the defense is nuts. And it's who else is hovering around that 10 spot?
The Packers, the Ravens,
the Chargers. The Chargers are destroyed.
There's a chance. I am still so skeptical of Bo Nix. The Dobbins injury matters a little bit to me. I can't ignore the defense, though. Me and Carson brought it up last show, but like this team, these numbers for reference start being tracked in 2003 when we have a 32-team league. So like these are of 32 teams. Since 03, this is a top 5 red zone defense and third down defense of any defense. Like not just like 1 year, not just this year. Top 5 since 2003. They are also on pace to have the second most sacks in a single season ever. So, like, that was the point that we wanted to hammer home last episode, is the point that, like, this is not just a great defense, the best in the league. This is a historically great defense. That being said, to people who are all really over this Broncos team, if the Broncos were to win the Super Bowl, there are only
He's doing
4
the
teams.
Quarterbacks count.
There are only 4 teams who have won the Super Bowl with this formula over the past 25 years. That would be the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Brad Johnson, historically great defense. The 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer, who, obviously I like Bo Nix compared to those guys. But then you go to the 08 Steelers, who had the number 20th ranked offense, the number 1 defense, in the 2015 Broncos, who had the number 19 offense and the number 4 defense. All I'm saying, and this goes back to Carson's video on defense, it's like it would be an aberration.
It would.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I am just saying only 4 teams in the last 25 years have won the Super Bowl with this rigid kind of formula. It is very possible. It's just not my favorite one to bet on, and that's why I'm always going to be skeptical of Denver.
No, totally. And I don't even know if I would say it's really possible. Like, it is really, really hard to do. There's a reason we haven't seen it in a decade, and we hadn't seen it in like a decade before that. Offense ultimately does lead to championships more. But this is where, again, we're not talking about, are they even in my top 5? Are they going to be in my top 10? I think I'm going to put them there. But as amazing as their defense is, the offense is the reason that you barely limp past the Texans with 18 points. You barely limp past the Jets with 13 points. You barely limp past the Raiders with 10 points. And like all that stuff is concerning, and why I'm ultimately still not high on the Broncos, but maybe a little bit higher than you. You like this one, Logan. Sam Erickson says, for Logan, who are your top guys in the Steelers burn book in recent history?
Burn? Like my shit list?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, how long do you want me to go? I can get on my soapbox. Mitch Trubisky is number 1. I have a running list of all of my most hated Steelers. Mitch pissed away
Taylor.
3 games single-handedly. Fucking bum. Kicked us out of the playoffs. Number 2, Josh Scobie. Worst kicker I've ever seen. I will never forget him.
Ike Taylor. You're not even saying Ike Taylor. What about the DBs? You got all the DBs
Artie
that
Burns.
you get mad at. Artie
Sean
Burns.
Davis. Ike is on that list. Ike gets a little bit of a pass because he was actually on like good Steelers teams. Who else is on this list? I can give you my top 10 here real quick.
Okay.
Number 1, Neil O'Donnell. Even though I wasn't alive, there's nothing that could ever go over Neil O'Donnell throwing 2 interceptions to Larry Brown in the Super Bowl.
And 2 horrible interceptions.
Right to him. I'm still convinced Neil O'Donnell threw that game. Number 2 is Josh Scobie. Greatest kicker in Jacksonville Jaguars history. We lose Sean Sweezum, I think, to a season-ending injury that year, and they trade for this guy, and I'm like, oh, he's the bee's knees. Jacksonville loves the guy.
Yeah.
6 of 10. Horrible.
Yeah, you're aware that there's a new GOAT in Jacksonville, though. A new record holder.
He's freaking
Shout out
sweet.
Cam Little, bro.
Number 3, Mitch Trubisky looked like a deer in headlights. And the thing that infuriated me about Mitch is, again, pissed away those games. Didn't make the playoffs because of him that year. He looked like a deer in headlights all 3 of those games, and Mike Tomlin still kept trotting him out there. No awareness. Number 4, Artie Burns. First-round pick, never saw him make a play. Number 5, Antoine Blake, always burnt. Number 6, Devin Bush, had a great rookie season, was unplayable the rest of his time as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Number 7, Jarvis Jones, waste of a first-round pick, bum. Number 8, Fitzgerald Toussaint fumbled in the 2015 AFC divisional game against Denver when we should have won the Super Bowl. We had that game in control, gave it away. Number 9, Rashard Mendenhall, constantly shits on the Steelers in retrospect and just white people in general. The guy's a bigot. Fumbled in the Super Bowl. Lost us that one. Number 10, Gunnar Olszewski. fucking bum, dude. That guy he's been a great special teamer for every other team he played for. I'm still convinced that guy was an inside agent for the New England Patriots, sent to destroy us from within. And then I have a laundry list of honorable mentions. Miles Jack, Ike Taylor, LeGarrette Blount, Cody Wallace. If this guy was a player, he'd be number one. Matt Canada, Mason Cole, Sean Davis, Chase Claypool, Nate Washington, Limas Swede. Fuck you guys.
What NFL teams do you see making the playoffs that are currently out and vice versa, Logan?
Baltimore. Kansas City.
He's in a flow state right now. You guys have never seen him more locked in. He just needed to get that little fucking fire in his belly.
God
It's
damn,
like,
dude, I've been
it's like
waiting
needing to get
so
hit
long,
for the first
dude.
time in a game. He's like,
Yeah,
he's
I've
awake
been
now.
waiting so
2.5
long to empty
hours
that
in,
clip,
Logan
man.
just woke up.
They fucking make my blood boil still, man. Detroit, I don't know if they're in the playoff picture right now. I would still have
they're out
Detroit.
right now.
They're out. I would have Detroit get in there. I don't think Chicago makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if San Francisco's in the playoff picture. I think
They are in right now.
Chicago would be my flip. Damn, dude, does that mean... Man, the NFC is interesting, dude. That means one of the Packers or Lions is probably going to miss the dance.
No, not if you have Chicago out.
They could still both make it in with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Then I'll go with that. I'll say Detroit is my pick for the NFC, and then AFC, I do think Baltimore and Kansas City find their way back into the dance.
Yeah, I'm going to say Ravens make it, Steelers miss it. Ravens win the AFC North. I'm going to say Chiefs make it, and either the Jags or Chargers miss it. I think the bar is high, right? The Chiefs got to make up a game of ground there on the Jags, game and a half on LA, but I just still trust them more. I think that they're going to win the 5 out of 7 that they need to down the stretch and get in. But it's really close because the Jags and the Chargers both have the tiebreaker over them. So that's pretty close to 50-50. I'm more confident in the Ravens. And then I do think the Lions are going to make it and the Bears are going to miss it. I just still think the Lions are a substantially better football team. And I think the Bears, not trying to be a downer, because what a season it's been for them, their upcoming schedule, Logan, Eagles, Packers twice, Lions, Niners, Steelers. It's the second toughest in football. Like, it's just brutal. If I am taking them against the Eagles, the Packers, the Lions, the Niners, they're underdogs in all those games. That's 5 games. So I just think they're not as good a football team. They've got a really difficult schedule in front of them, and the Lions are only a game back. So I'm going to take Detroit to make it. Now, Logan, we get to the most wonderful time of the episode. Thank you to all you guys who have stuck with us. This is going to be a record for the longest Nerd Sesh episode ever. I've done almost 5 hours once on Mars's podcast where we talked about the top 10 players in NBA history. We've never pushed 3 hours. Ooh, maybe the Theo ranking every quarterback episode.
I was going to say,
that was like 250.
230 to 3 is our record.
Our peak. All right, well, we're going to have to dig into the record book there, but this is a beautiful question to get us started. River Brown of the Pick a Side podcast, the lovely Riv, says, if you guys was stuck on an island with me for 24 hours with 10 bottles of Hennessy, who is caving first? Me. It's me. I already caved. There's nothing I wouldn't do for Riv. There's nothing I wouldn't do with Riv. It's pretty much that simple. He looks in my eyes and I just melt. I just start melting.
Well said.
I'm like, wait. You love Darius Garland too? Wait. You love Amen Thompson too? Wait, you love Steph Curry too? What are we even doing here? Let's just hot tub together. Let's take our tops off. Let's open up the Henny. Let's see what happens. But I think you would fold pretty quick too, Logan. You love Riv.
Oh, I'd be done after the first bottle. Yeah.
See, that's the
I'm
thing.
I'm done.
I get to a point where I'm like, yeah, we don't need 10 of these. I need maybe a quarter of a bottle. I just need a tiny bit of liquid courage. I don't even actually need it. I just need Riv to think I'm a little drunk. I just want him to
you're into it
think
off
I'm
rip.
desperate immediately.
Yeah.
The second I'm like, all right, this is our life. Cool, let's do it. Oh, there's only 24 hours, but hey, come on, let's make some mistakes. Let's have some regrets. That's the way we got to live
eventful.
out here. Matt Barnes, not the Matt Barnes who beat Derek Fisher up, says, what's your favorite personal sports moment you've watched? My answer here, we may have taken this on before. It's the 2019 Wimbledon final. Novak Djokovic saved 2 match points to beat Roger Federer in the 5th set tiebreak. Just an incredible, incredible moment. And yeah, it's my favorite. It surpasses even the Warriors titles. And the Bills have unfortunately never given me one of those moments.
I think I have 2, both with my dad. Number 1 to me, and I don't know if I could ever replace this, was Super Bowl 43. I remember when Santonio caught that ball in the back of the end zone. My dad and I hit like this chest bump. Like it was so like just in sync. Like my dad and I were. It's the biggest moment that you could get like ever. Game-winning drive, game-winning touchdown.
Yeah.
Like my dad and I literally levitated into like this
That's
holy
awesome.
chest bump. And we're just rabid. That's up there. And then I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but James Conrad's holy shot in disc golf is so like my dad and I also were watching that live, and last hole, if he doesn't hit the shot, he loses the disc golf championship at the end of the year because Macbeth had parked his drive. So he has to hit this shot from like 180
Macbeth,
feet out.
Because Macbeth is like going crazy. Macbeth. Because the Shakespeare play.
Also, Paul Macbeth, fun fact, once pulled my dad out of a lake from drowning.
Real as fuck. Bro. It's real as
He was
fuck.
playing on a card with Paul Macbeth, and my dad fell in to some water, and Paul fished him out. That was pretty epic. But yeah, James hits this shot. And my dad's known James since James was a little kid, since he was 10, because my dad played disc golf with his dad. So it was a really emotional, cool moment for us watching him literally hit the biggest possible shot that you could hit to send that to overtime and then win in a playoff. So those 2 are really special to me.
Bet you guys didn't think that you were going to get a tennis and a disc golf answer,
take.
did you? And a Macbeth reference. But that's just the kind of versatility we've got here on the pod. We're 5-tool players. Baseball reference. We did have some people ask when we're going to start covering baseball, and the answer is never. Don't have the time, don't have the interest. This, though, is a wonderful question from Art. Some quick little who you taking on the squad, Logan. Would you rather? Rapid fire. Alan Crabb or Anthony Morrow?
Anthony Morrow.
How dare you disrespect a Cal Bears legend, Alan Crabb? I am taking Alan Crabb, the $70 million man, Alan Crabb. Yeah, Anthony Morrow was an amazing shooter. But, Alan Crabb
Was that it?
got the higher career high. No, that's not it. I was just pondering it.
I was like, wow.
Marion Barber or Steven Jackson? This is easy.
Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson, no question. Give me
one of the most
big
underrated,
hammer.
I think, all-time peaks of all time.
Paul Posluszny or Lawrence Timmons?
Ooh! This is a good one. Give me Lawrence Timmons.
I'm going to take Paul Posluszny because I'm going to take the Bills legend and one of the great college football players ever, really. Shout out to Paul Posluszny. Lawrence Timmons maybe was better, but don't care. Joe Ingles or Luke Walton?
Joe Ingles.
Jingles, dude. Jingles. Jingles should have been 6th man of the year in 2021. I want that sexy, sweet 45% from deep. I want that sexy, sweet passing feel. I want his advocacy for autism awareness. I want everything that comes with Jingles. I want his ability to get in Paul George's head. I want his silliness. I want his Aussie charm. Give me Jingles. Shout out to Luke Walton, too, though, the son of one of the great men to ever live. Last one, Ryan Tannehill or Andy Dalton? Tannehill. I want Tannehill. Tannehill efficiency circa 2020. I mean, he was a Derrick Henry merchant, but he can move.
Dude, this is actually such an evenly balanced question. Andy Dalton, Tannehill won a playoff game. Andy Dalton never did, so I'll take Tannehill, but that's a good one.
Tannehill also got in like the worst MVP talks of all time. He never ever should have been there, but he did have a 33 touchdown to 7 pick season in 2020, as I mentioned. Which
Best
is,
play action quarterback in football for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he had a
obviously.
play action a lot easier, but
Obviously.
yeah, I would take Tannehill. Appreciate you guys. Straight goats. Thank you, Art. That question just made me smile, as does this one, dude. I love you guys, man. Yezra, more impressive. Lowry's 30 points per game this year or Jerry Stackhouse's 30 points per game in 01? Technically 29.8, but we'll round. Logan, I'm waiting.
Dude, Jerry was just putting shots up, man.
Jerry was just putting shots up, but Jerry was also second in the NBA in points per game that year. And Lauri is 42nd this year because it's the woke offense-only NBA where everybody scores 35 points per game. No, it's Lauri. Lauri's having an insane season, dude. I mean, just like totally back to the best version of himself. I'm happy to see it. I've been a big Lauri believer, and then last year was just like a total dip, but he's getting the line a lot. The just ridiculous volume three-point shooting is all the way back. I mean, he's averaging 30. He's averaging 30, Logan, on 62.5% true shooting with like 1.4 turnovers per game. Now, he doesn't have the ball in his hands a lot, but that's part of what makes him so special. Who can score that much that efficiently all off ball? Lauri Markkanen is doing some very good work and is a great offensive player, and I would take him, but it is awesome. Stack is the epitome of that era when it was just like ISO heavy shooting guards just put up a fuck ton of shots in this ugly, slow half-court basketball. Always going to be one of my favorite seasons. Okay, we got a couple Thanksgiving questions here, which excites me because I love the holidays and I love Thanksgiving. Leo says, favorite Thanksgiving dishes, mains, sides, and dessert?
Main, I'm taking the turkey.
Is
You
there
got
an
to.
alternative? I guess some
could
people
eat-
do a ham.
My family also brings ham, but I like turkey for sure more. Sides, I'm taking. Okay, just one, or should we go two?
Dude, just like be yourself, man. I just want
Mac
you to
and
be
cheese,
comfortable.
bro. Green beans, mashed potatoes. I'm loading my plate up.
Okay, wow, you fucking stole the whole draft. Okay, I'm going to say a great roll. Fantastic.
Good choice. Good choice.
I've gotten super high on stuffing, dude. I think stuffing is delicious.
Great choice.
And then, yeah, if you give me mac and cheese, but it's got to have breadcrumbs. I think mac and cheese is one of the biggest floor-to-ceiling disparities. I just can't take the texture when it's all cheese. But if you do it right with nice crispy breadcrumbs, it's like one of my favorite things in the world. So, yeah, I think those are good shout-outs. You know, Logan, I don't do anything crazy, you know, whatever people do, marshmallows, sweet potatoes, that kind of stuff.
I like my favorite food all time, if my family doesn't really make it, they used to make it in my school. Some hot collard greens, bro, would go hard too. Dessert, my number one is definitely a pecan pie. What about you?
I'll go with a pumpkin pie. I'm not the biggest pie guy. I don't really like the texture of cooked fruit often. I love fruit flavor, but pumpkin is just such a nice, clean filling. The crust is always going to be the highlight, you know, of a pie for me. But then I think the whipped cream just goes so nicely on a nice, smooth pumpkin pie. That's my top choice. Yeah. You know, I'm never going to take a pie over a cake, but I respect the Thanksgiving traditions. I've gotten a lot higher on Thanksgiving food overall. My grandma used to cook Thanksgiving dinner, and it was just horrible. I think she was like cooking the turkey and, I don't know, frog piss brine or something like that. It was bad. Boiling it, probably. Now you get a nice smoked turkey. Yeah, that's good stuff. Andy Quack says NFL and NBA comps for the primary Thanksgiving foods. Ooh, okay. Let's think. Mashed potatoes. I mean, that's got to be like an offensive lineman, right? That's like a Panay Sewell or something. We literally say meat and potatoes when you talk about the trenches, you know, the fundamentals. Stuffing. Stuffing is like Donovan Mitchell. I don't know why. I just feel like there's a combination of things. Like he blends the rim pressure with the pull-up three-point shooting. Stuffing. You're getting a nice variety in there.
I like that.
Turkey. That's got to be like LeBron.
I know. I was
just
going
like
to
the
say, dude, that's like the
star.
mainstay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Yeah.
a big dog.
That's LeBron, Mahomes, somebody like that. Pumpkin pie. That feels like Steph. I don't know, just sweet.
I like that. That's a great comp. That's
Thanks,
actually
man.
perfect.
Yeah. Who's like a little freak? Who's a little freak that we can
A little
choose?
freak.
From?
What are you saying this for food for?
I don't know. I just wanted to
and
start
then like
thinking of
Kyle
freaks first.
Kuzma's like the cranberry sauce.
Ooh, you don't like cranberry sauce?
Dude, I
don't use it.
I eat cranberry sauce every year because they always talk about how your taste buds change, and I'm always so excited to eat it, and then it never tastes good, man.
Yeah, so that's Kyle Kuzma for us. And what else? Green beans? It feels like that should just be like a tall guy who's got a
Smith?
stalk-like build. You know,
I was
I'm
just gonna
doing it
say, like, it
physically
just
there.
kind of.
I think Luke Cornett. Why isn't Luke Cornett green beans? You know, he's got the build. He takes care of the basics on both sides of the ball. I think that works.
Mac and
I think that's
cheese
pretty
is
good.
like Jordan Poole? I don't know.
Yeah, mac and cheese.
You said
Or Zion.
the Florida ceiling. There's got to be a big disparity between
like
what they can
that.
give you.
I like that, Logan. I like that. We got to get one more NFL comp in here, though. We're neglecting the NFL. What's one more food?
Deviled egg.
I don't know who's deviled eggs.
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix is deviled
Bo
eggs,
Nix
bro.
is deviled eggs,
Yeah,
bro.
great call. Great call. Okay, we've got another food question. I like this one. Drew Sinclair, if you could only pick one preparation of potatoes to eat for the rest of your life, which would it be and why?
What a sick question.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I love that.
I'm
freaking out. This is way too much pressure. I'm freaking out, Logan.
I'm stuck between two answers because, like, I like mashed potatoes. I like potato chips, too. I think my pick would either be French fries or hash browns.
So good, dude. Such good calls. I was going to include tater tots in with that. I love a fried potato. Ultimately, I don't think tater tots are as good as fries. I'd probably just go with fries. Do I get all the variations? Do I get shoestring? Do I get steak cut? Or do I just get one kind? All I need is shoestring, honestly. Or, you know what I really want is a beer battered fry. Or maybe not beer, but just a battered, when you get that good, crispy, deep fry. That's the best kind there is. But potatoes are incredible. They've got so much variety, and I commend them a lot. There's one specific kind of potato that my friend's dad makes that's just incredible. There's a fried, crispy outside. I don't know what it is, though. I don't know how to describe it. It's very unique.
You mean like a baked potato?
No. It's not a baked potato. It's almost more in like the shape of like a roasted potato, if you think about that sort of size and form, but it's prepared differently. It's impossible for me to explain. I don't know what it's called, but it's fantastic. Okay. Top 3 holidays, asks Devin Corrant. Christmas, Thanksgiving. Does my birthday count? When I'm the big birthday boy and everybody sings to me?
It's a national holiday. Those are my...
It is in France. My birthday's Bastille Day.
No shit.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I'm an advocate for liberation and the French people.
I think Thanksgiving is my favorite just because I really do love the food. All my family gets together. Christmas is up there for 2. I don't know what number 3 would be for me, man.
New Year's.
I was thinking like MLK Day, maybe.
That's Women's Day, International Women's Day, National Girlfriend Day.
Yes.
Veterans Day. Memorial Day. The Labor Day. Wow, I actually thought I was making something up for a second there, as if Labor Day isn't a thing. It's like, how do we shout out the laborers in this country? They already do it.
Actually, maybe
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Of course.
Maybe vulnerable guy day, little guys day, short kings day, small teeny guys day, sensitive boys day, pride, gay, or as I call it, gay people month. Yeah.
Maybe Halloween. I don't know. Halloween's kind of fun.
I don't like Halloween that much, just on account of it's spooky and it's scary. And, what if the world went full purge mode? I wouldn't be prepared for that.
True.
Yeah. No. All right. I would go, my birthday, if that counts. If you're going to make me pick a holiday that everybody celebrates, maybe just New Year's. It's a clear runner-up to Christmas, but like the holiday season, I just find so delightful, Logan. I love the whimsy in the air, the joy, the celebration. Yes. Which character from the Muppets do you relate to the most on an emotional, psychological level, and which do you feel you closely physically resemble the most? This is from Joe.
Mentally, Animal. Physically, the Count, I guess.
Incorrect, unfortunately. I'm Bert, you're Ernie.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. That's what's up. Okay, let's see. We've only got a couple more. Want asks, what are your top 4 movies of all time?
Carson?
Yeah. Thanks, Letterboxd, for asking. I've only been waiting my whole life for this question. Parasite, Good Will Hunting, Manchester by the Sea, and I'm going to say Inception. Some honorable mentions would be Kramer versus Kramer, The Departed, this year's One Battle After Another, the great film Ordinary People, Django Unchained, Pulp Fiction. There's a lot. There's a lot of great movies, but I think those 4 that I said I'm going to stick with. Although One Battle After Another this year, Logan, you got to go see it. Again, you're so much like Colonel Lockjaw. It really makes a case for being that high. I love that movie.
I have a pretty concrete top 3, and then the 4th is, changes time to time. I would say Snatch is my favorite of all time with Brad Pitt. Scarface with Al Pacino. 3 would be Shawshank Redemption. I always fucking cry at the end of that movie. Like, it just gets me. And then, I don't know, I think 4th would maybe be Inception's a great shout. I thought about that.
Chris Nolan, man, he's one of the greats.
Have you seen? Have you seen Memento?
I love Memento.
I saw that for the first time the other day. I didn't know that was a Christopher Nolan movie. That was a really good watch.
He's incredible.
I'm gonna say Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. That's a really funny movie. I like that one. But there's a bunch. Though my top 3 is concrete though.
Great shout. I'm going to give a couple more shout-outs to Her. I absolutely love that movie, and it's awesome because now it's probably what, like 50% of guys are living. Magnolia, might be my favorite PTA movie.
I can't believe
that's a beauty. Yeah.
I normally have these as their own category, but I will mention some superhero movies that I really like. Logan is up there for me.
Because it's named after you. Yep.
Of course. Endgame and Infinity War, or both. I like Infinity War more, but both of those are actually 2 of my favorite ever. And then Deadpool and Deadpool 2 always get me. Those would be like my
Deadpool
top 5.
Deadpool 2 made me cry.
Superhero. Both. Yeah, Deadpool 2 really did make me cry, bro.
What else do I have up here? Brokeback Mountain, phenomenal film. I'm dead serious, Logan. Fucking wake up, buddy. It's 2025.
Is it actually on your list?
That it's in like my top 20. I'm looking at a more extended list now. It's so good. You'll cry. And great performances. Wow. Sing Sing, which came out last year, made me cry. That's an amazing movie. So I don't know. I've gone way past 4 now. Interstellar, Fantastic Mr. Fox. I'm just going to keep going.
Reservoir Dogs.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Not one of my top few Tarantino movies, but a very good one.
Usual Suspects.
I'm not as high on Usual Suspects.
I love Usual Suspects.
I feel like Usual Suspects is kind of saved by the twist. I don't know. It's not my favorite. But Logan, this isn't a movie podcast. Although we do have another question about movies, which is the following. Everest. Sorry, Logan, this one's only for me, so go fuck yourself. Between One Battle After Another and Sinners, which do you think will ultimately be looked back on as the more defining, beloved auteur blockbuster of this year? I can only speak for myself. I'm going to say One Battle After Another. I think Sinners is great. I think Sinners was a real good time. I think it delivered a good, important message. I think it had a lot to say. I think One Battle After Another, though, is just like a genuine masterpiece. I think the ability to balance tones, the writing is so fucking funny. The plot is so engaging. It's long, but it moves. The performances are out of this world. Leo is so good. Sean Penn, that's like one of the best supporting actor performances I've ever seen. Benicio del Toro is so good. Like, everything in that movie is just gold to me. And, of course, very timely. Great, important message behind that one as well. Yeah. That's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. So I'm going to go with that one. All right, Logan. We're down to the last couple questions. This one comes to us from Hand with Glasses. It's also only addressed to me, actually, and it is favorite Carseat Headrest album. My favorite artist, Carseat Headrest. This is a really hard question. I'm going to say Twin Fantasy is my favorite. It's really close. I love pretty much all the albums. I love Teens of Denial, but I think it has to be Twin Fantasy. Maybe that makes me a basic little bitch, Logan, but that's just an unbelievable album that really goes perfect. Yeah, honestly, it's not actually that close now that I look at like the entire song list on this album. It's ridiculous. It's like a strong 10 for 10. So that's my answer. But the good news, Logan, if you're thinking, oh no, I'm getting iced out. No, this last question is all about you. Bam Skitball asks, how does Logan look so beautiful? adrenochrome.
Took the words out my mouth. How did you were
you
going to
say that,
man? Yes.
Yeah, well, because it's true. That's the only explanation for.
Well, and see, like what I also do is see, like they'll take. I'll go in. They take vials of my blood. They like filter and purify it, and then they put it back into my body. And so, like that's also an alternative. I don't just get it from wherever I get my.
We are Logan Camden.
Where I get it from, you know.
We are Logan Camden. We
I am
Logan Camden.
We are Robert Paulson.
There were a couple people asking about the Epstein list. If you were involved in the suppression of that, that's where you get your adrenochrome usually.
No comment.
But that stuff's all fake now. Well, for 5 years, I've been going around saying that every famous person ever was on it, but now I actually decided
it's a big Democrat hoax.
Yeah,
actually, it's a huge Democrat hoax.
We got to drain the swamp, but not like this.
See, but the files aren't real, but they do exist, and the Democrats don't want them coming out because they're all in the list.
Yes.
So I'm going to sign an executive order to release the untouched. They have not been untouched. They have not been touched at all.
Yeah.
They're actually not redacted at all, and it's got all the Democrats in it.
And Ghislaine actually says, I'm a pretty good guy. And Ghislaine Maxwell, the esteemed and honorable Ghislaine Maxwell, says, I was never anything but a gentleman.
I actually think we should free her. I don't even think she should be in jail.
No, at least we should let her, like, I don't know, roam around a playground, you know. She should be able to live her life, for God's sakes. What the heck did she ever do that was so wrong, except, I guess, associate with a couple of Democrats who were pulling off a hoax?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all that there really is.
Great lady. Great lady.
Great lady says we're a couple of great guys, Logan, and you know, I mean that's our crew, man. Well, you and Epstein, you guys.
We go way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
Way back. I personally stay out of that kind of stuff, but I guess because of you, I'm associated. And so if the lists do come out, I just want you guys to all be prepared. Logan is definitely on there. I'm probably on there. But Ghislaine says that we're both good guys. So it's up to you to ultimately make your decision about whether or not the lists are real, fake, Democrat hoax, or if maybe actually it's not such a big deal that we're on there because who cares, right? Who cares? Because why would we let this distract us from the fact that they're drinking baby blood? They're drinking baby blood. Not necessarily the people who are on the actual list or maybe who have now been removed from the list but who clearly would be on the list, but let's focus on.
Hey,
I think
don't worry about
AOC,
that.
I think AOC is drinking baby blood. That's what I heard.
Well, actually, I don't even think you should worry about that.
And Zoran is drinking baby blood.
And there's a dillion illegal immigrants in our country.
400. No, Logan, don't make up a number. 486 billion. That is the number. 486 billion illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. This is America.
And if you're focused on the Epstein list instead of that, I mean, come on.
Logan, you for all I know, you could be one. They shapeshift and they change faces.
And they're taking your job, but they're also taking the welfare. I don't know if you heard about that.
They're taking your job and they're taking the welfare and they're voting 100. They're voting
100 million times for Zoran. They all voted for Zoran.
And you're thinking, wait a minute, hold on. If they aren't New York residents, how do they do it? You think that kind of crap matters, dude? We're in the fucking post-truth age, man. The only thing that we know for sure is that Elon is more athletic than LeBron, and that Elon, if he were in the 1998 NFL draft, would have been selected number 1 overall over Peyton Manning. That is the only thing we know. Everything else is a Democrat hoax. And Zoran did it.
Well said.
All right. On that note, this has been the Nerd Sesh experience and another one of our podcasts. We're in the holiday spirit, Logan. How could you not be? Come on. Thanksgiving's around the corner. Big football, great basketball. It's a good time to be alive. If you guys want to support us or hang out with us some more, you know where to find us. We are constantly pumping out content. So that is all across our YouTube channel, all of our full episodes. As I mentioned, the video essay I did that went out earlier today on the no point guard situation. And you can listen to all of our shows across all audio platforms. You can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. And you can join our Discord if you want to discuss, was this the longest episode in NerdSesh history? Maybe one of you NerdSesh historians can find out. But with that, as always, we appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.